Her smile, it shines so bright. Florabella on my screen. Her smile, it shines so bright. She's a queen with every scene. In the morning or the night, recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power. Spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power. Spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power. Spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power. Spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong.
Petals got power, Florabella stands tall. Every drip, every drop, watch the haters fall. Channel sharp as thorns, ain't taking no mess. Scroll through her feet, feel that queen's finesse. Vines tangle tight, but Flora breaks free. Roots so deep, can't mess with her tree. From the mud she rises, roses from the dirt. Every comment section she lays down hurt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. From the garden green to the concrete wall, Florabella, unstoppable nature's child. Leaves whisper secrets, she's the loudest shout. From the channel buzzing, she never backs out. Seed of strength, through seasons she grows. In the face of doubt, her spirit glows. Cameras ain't a limit, she branches out. Thorns in her crown, she wears it no doubt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless.
Please talk to someone else, cause I can't talk to broke boy. I can't talk to broke boy. I can't talk to broke boys. I can't talk to broke boy. I can't talk to broke boy. No, I can't talk to broke boy. I can't talk to. That nigga's crazy. Hopping in bitch and I saw it to be. Snakes in the grass so they harder to see. My brother would give up his life to the O. He told me he'd go be a martyr for me. Said that she ready to corner the 6. I hit up Pauline and charter the P. Ain't really leave, but I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm riding around in Atlanta with Sad, cause that nigga been going harder than me. Nothing to change, I'm just harder to please. Ferrari is making an SUV. We ain't got a choice, we ordering these. Shout out Noel for recording the V's. He know where this shit about to go. Cause nobody touching the flow. They say you alone at the top, but it's gotta be lonely below. You just getting ready to diss, but don't even mention a hoe. And don't even mention a foe, unless you was trying to go broke.
Whoa, I got more strikes than Adidas.
Yeah, I got the stripes to fuck.
I don't chase bitches, I leave them.
Hoes screaming like I'm just a beat.
I don't get mad, I get even.
Bitch, you niggas like a puzzle beat.
I don't get mad, I get even.
Bitch, you niggas, then you
Whoa, all that foundation she wearing, she thinks she QC. Telling I might sneak in with you with me. You must be Coach K, cause you ain't P. I'm on the jet like my last name Lee. 2 sticks in my hand like I'm playing a Wii. G-Block babies will spank you for free. We rough niggas up, now they begging for peace.
baby.
Stepping on shit out in French in my toe. One and I told, I'm so OVO. Halloween coming, he wanna dress up, but he don't need no costume. I'm turning them ghosts. She called me mucus, I stay in her throat. Still hit that boy, got his ass hitting notes. My niggas were mad,
So you know where this shit about to go. Cause nobody touching the flow. They say you alone at the top, but it's gotta be.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Hope you guys are having a great day. I had a pretty good day. Had a late start, but I had a good day nonetheless. I don't want to bring up politics anymore, but I know people are feeling discouraged and sad. And I promise you, there are more important things right now than being mad that your candidate didn't win. So anyways, I hope you guys are having a good afternoon or evening as well. It's about 7:18 Eastern Standard Time. I know it's early for some of you guys, but this is my evening show. All right, so as you guys can see, this is going to be another one of the roulette style shows that I do, where we're looking at a bunch of different videos and concepts that are inside of those. Excuse me, I am about to pass away. Hold on.
Battles got power, Florabella stands tall. Every drip, every drop, watch the haters.
All right, so sorry about that. My tongue was getting all twisted up and it was all dry. But essentially what we're going to be talking about here today, some of the subject matter might get a little trigger warning is what I'll say. Some of the subject matter might be upsetting for some people, especially if they have been through it or they know somebody who's gone through it. Oh, hold on, guys. 1 second.
Fall. Channel sharp as thorns, ain't taking no mess. Scroll through her feet, feel that queen's finesse. Vines tangle tight, but Flora breaks free. Roots so deep, can't mess with her tree. From the mud she rises, roses from the dirt. Every comment section she lays down hurt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. From the garden green to the concrete wall, Florabella, unstoppable nature's child. Leaves whisper secrets, she's the loudest shout. From the channel buzzing, she never backs out. Seed of strength, through season she grows. In the face of doubt, her spirit glows. Cameras ain't a limit, she branches out. Thorns in her crown, she wears it no doubt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless.
Sorry, y'all. Just give me a few minutes. Hold on.
I can't talk to broke boy. I can't talk to broke boy. I can't talk to broke boys. I can't talk to broke boy. I can't talk to broke boy. No. I can't talk to broke boy. I can't talk to. That nigga's crazy. Hopping in, bitch, and I saw it to be. Snakes in the grass, so they harder to see. My brother would give up his life to the O. He told me he'd go be a martyr for me. Said that she ready to corner the 6. I hit up Pauline and charter the B. Ain't really leave, but I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm riding around in Atlanta with sad, cause that nigga been going harder than me. Nothing to change, I'm just harder to please. Ferrari is making an SUV. We ain't got a choice, we ordering these. Shout out Noel for recording the V's. He know where this shit about to go. Cause nobody touching the flow. They say you alone at the top, but it's gotta be lonely below. You was getting ready to diss, but don't even mention a hoe. And don't even mention a foe, unless you was trying to go broke.
Whoa, I got more strikes than Adidas.
Yeah, I got the stripes for fucking.
I don't chase bitches, I leave them.
Hoes screaming like I'm just
I don't get mad, I get even.
Hit you niggas like a puzzle.
I don't get mad, I get even.
Hit you niggas, then you.
Whoa, all that foundation she wearing, she thinks she QC. Telling I might sneaky link you with me. You must be Coach K, cause you ain't P. I'm on the jet like my last name Lee. 2 sticks in my hand like I'm playing a Wii. G-Block babies and spank you for free. We rough niggas up, now they begging for peace. Baby. Stepping on shit out in French in my toe. One in I told, I'm so OVO. Halloween coming, he wanna dress up, but he don't need no costume. I'm turning them ghosts. She caught me mute cause I stay in her throat. Still hit that boy, got his ass hitting notes. My niggas were man,
So you know where this shit about to go. Cause nobody touching the flow. They say you alone at the top, but it's gotta be lonely below. You was getting ready to diss, but don't even mention a hoe. And don't even mention a foe, unless you was trying to go broke. Oh damn, man, you niggas is the worst. Savage, snatch you out your crib, then drop you in a hearse. Baby, please, man, me nervous. Stop reaching in your purse. Nigga went and bought a house when he could've bought a verse. Niggas dumb as fuck. Imagine if I did that stupid shit when I was coming up. My crib feel like a hedge fund. I be in here just thumbing up. No, I'm SN1 till I'm done fucking London up. Niggas made me nauseous. I had enough of broke boys. I can't talk to 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 broke boys. All you niggas make me sick. All you niggas rapping about the bricks and the licks. And I hear in real life you living with your bitch. I can't talk to broke boys. I can't talk to broke boys. I can't talk to broke boys. I don't want no combo. I don't got no time for niggas posting mansion, living in a condo. Y'all be make believing. I cannot relate to ya. I can't talk to broke boys. I can't talk to broke boys. I cannot believe y'all was dissing on a old boy. I can't even think of how you came up with that flow, boy. Please talk to someone else.
All right, sorry guys. Sorry. As soon as I got settled to sit down and do the damn show, it wants to bing, bing, bing. Sorry guys. Phew. Who's over there? Trying to get they're safe. It's just the thing is really sensitive. So anyways, guys, welcome to my evening show. Okay, so the theme tonight is manipulation. Obviously, I put Bandit Psychology Roulette so that you guys can get that. Tonight is going to be sort of like a scholarly review of manipulation, different tactics, what it looks like, the psychology behind it. So like from physicians and other people who are in the field about manipulation, where it comes from and things like that. So why people engage in it. Obviously, I saw someone in the chat say it's for survival. I just don't think that's a good enough reason to manipulate people, you know? So obviously, we understand people do things for survival, but there's still a moral standard that we're supposed to carry ourselves by. So anyways, let's get into it. I'm going to start off, we're going to read this article. So don't worry, we're going to be listening and seeing a lot of these examples too. I'm going to have some videos for you guys, so it won't just be me reading a scholarly article that you can't understand. or that you think I'm not intellectual enough to apply to life. Okay, so let's get into this. Again, this is from oh damn, I got rid of the article, but anyways, it's a scholarly article, and they specifically talk. Okay, Ukrainian Catholic University. All right, so the name of this article is called "Psychological Aspects of Manipulation Within Interpersonal Interaction: Manipulations and Manipulators." So it sort of gives you an idea about what we're going to go into. So just stay tuned here with me, and we're going to talk about it from a perspective that, yes, we're listening to scholarly articles, but we're going to make real life applications to this. All right. So in the introduction, they say the phenomenon of manipulation has long attracted the attention of scientists, theorists, and practitioners in various fields. It still attracts their attention, especially in times of informational outbreak, latest information technologies, and industrial development during rapid technical and technological process, in times of reorientation of an individual to the market type of interaction, and transformation of the individual's value system. Oh, my Lanta! Oh, my Lanta! 1 second, guys.
Florabella on my screen. Her smile is shone so bright. She's a queen with every scene. In the morning or the night. Recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora. She's got that power. Spreading her aura. Blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains.
All right, so sorry. So, yeah, very sensitive. I'm sure the temperature was just cranked up a little bit and then boom. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so what we were talking about is um, there was a lot of jargon, right? So let's get into the meat of the article, and I will start doing more of like a breakdown, right? So, in light of this agenda, we find it necessary to consider manipulation as a means of hidden control and to outline the key features by which it can be differentiated from other methods of influence. To compare the approaches used by various authors to the understanding of a manipulation and to analyze reasons for the personality development of a modern manipulative person, as well as his or her typical psychological characteristics. All right, so they're literally trying to break down for us. Thank you, Hassan. Yes, make sure you guys support the show because my roof is on fire. No, I'm just kidding. It's really not, but very sensitive. Not hard to not burn things, ma'am. I'm not the one cooking. That's the funny part, right? So I'm not burning anything. But again, it's a very sensitive, um, what do you call it? Smoke detector. And there's something in the air fryer, and they're making French fries. So there's a lot of smoke, residual smoke, um, that will make it easy for a smoke detector to think it's a fire. So, anyways, yeah, it sure is. But yes, please make sure you guys are also supporting the show. That's appreciated, for those of us who put our effort into putting together these shows for you guys. Anything that you guys would like to do to support the show would help. I also have the goal of super chats on the bottom there, which just helps to continue to build towards that paycheck from YouTube. They take a good percentage of it, but I think it's a fair way of doing things, except for the percentage that they take, like making it something for you to get later, because you sort of can build it up throughout the month. So if you guys would like to support, there is that. And let me just make sure that I do. There was one that I wanted to put, but I can't find it. Anyways, sorry guys. But yes, so I hate air fryers. Really? They're so convenient, Dawn. They're so convenient. And I hope you're having a good evening. Welcome to the show. I think I saw you were. No, maybe that was a different time. Oh, yeah, I did. It says, hey, Flora. So, yes, I hope you're having a good afternoon, evening, whatever time it is by you. But, yeah, so pretty much they're putting together the thoughts and ideas and the theories of many different practitioners and experiments and things to give you a certain, not a certain, but to explain to you the characteristics of somebody who's manipulative, their personality type, their psychological characteristics, that type of thing, right? So, trying to define the concept of influence, researchers often refer to such as a kind to such a scientific category as interaction, and to the concept of inter-influence derived from it today. Today, a generalized attitude to influence as an element of psychological interaction is observed, which often leads to the assimilation of these concepts. In psychological dictionaries, influence during an interaction is viewed as a process when an individual is changing the behavior of another person, as well as his or her attitudes, intentions, ideas, as a result of the person's activity, right? So, in essence, somebody, Don said they sound like a fire hazard. It's not the air fryer so much as it's the combination of the air fryer and then also frying fries on like at the same time in a different dish or whatever. So yeah, but what's being said here essentially is that a person who is trying to influence you in a way which isn't necessarily bad is trying to change your attitudes, your intentions, your ideas, or just be able to have some sort of influence on how you view yourself based on their interaction with you, right? So it's not necessarily bad to always influence someone. For example, if you want to influence your children to get higher education, then you have to sort of, in some ways, you have to make them understand that there's value to education, that they can benefit from education, both from what the way you explain it and also the results you have in your own life. So you could tell your kids, hey, get an education, that way you can have a family and be able to take care of them, and they understand how important it is to get an education so that you can further yourself, so that you can build wealth and things like that. Whatever concepts it is that you want somebody to believe, your way of influencing them is by trying to change how they view things. So if they think school is stupid, you want to change that idea. You want to change the belief in them that school is stupid or it has no value, right? Some people might say getting a degree is not valuable. But when you look at the data between the amount of money somebody makes when they don't go to school versus when they go to school, that could be a way that you can influence them, saying like, hey, I understand that you think there's no value to school, but this is the difference in money that people usually make when they have a degree versus when they don't, right? This is how you can benefit from getting this type of education, right? People who get this education make this amount or whatever. And I know you shouldn't just be black and white like that, but I think that when in terms of trying to influence somebody, you're gonna try and change how they're viewing a certain thing, like how they perceive something, and it's not always a bad thing, and it's not always forceful. So that's sort of what they're saying there and what they're explaining. But in psychological dictionaries, influence during interaction is viewed as a process when an individual is changing the behavior. So they really want to get that change off, right? They want to be able to get you to buy into the idea of school, do well in school, and actually get a degree, whatever. That's the outcome that they want from you. And they can get that outcome by influencing you to do well in school, meet the requirements, prepare for college, all of that. I know it sounds very dull, but that's how we have to get to the idea of when manipulation or influence is bad, right? So the concept of psychological impact or psychological influence is narrower. It is regarded as one of the options for impact in general. The slinging out of this category is based on cause and effect changes in the person's mind, psychological characteristics of the individual, group norms, public opinion, etc., as a result of the influence on him or her. The psychological impact involves the influence on the consciousness, feelings, actions of another person using exclusively psychological means, meaning verbal, paralinguistic, nonverbal ones, and providing the opportunity and time to respond to this impact. Tatiana emphasizes that we deal with the psychological impact when it has external origin in relation to the recipient and reflected in him and her. It leads to a change in the psychological regulations of human activity. Let me get into a little bit more jargon there in terms of manipulation. Hey, Lana Love, how you doing? We got Hassan in the building. He said there's some fire in here. Oh, I think I saw you already. There's Lana Love. All right, so let's get a little bit more into the conversation. Revisiting the issue of defining manipulation as a type of hidden psychological impact, right? So we went over the impacts where essentially you're trying to influence somebody's attitude, their perceptions, their beliefs. You're trying to influence how somebody thinks or moves in some way. Hey, Robin, how you doing tonight? I hope you're having a good evening. You missed all the fire alarm shenanigans. So we're getting right into the topic tonight. All right. So Schiller identified the concept of implicit psychological influence as the content of manipulation, emphasizing its destructive characteristics. So that's the main difference there between somebody influencing somebody or having a sort of influence that could be good or bad, or can just be neutral in terms of trying to get somebody to do something, versus manipulation, which has some sort of destruction to it. It's destructive to the person, maybe to their self-esteem, maybe it'll slow them down, that type of thing. All right, so the latent impact can pursue various goals and intentions of the initiator, Victor Shinoff believes. When both the recipient of the influence and the manipulator are in a win-win situation, such as covert influence is called assertive, as it does not aim to harm another person, but serves as an opportunity for a person to confidently and worthily assert his or her rights without pressing the rights of others. So they basically are describing certain types of situations where the person who's being manipulated or receiving the influence and the manipulator are both in a win-win situation, right? This is a time, you guys are silly. But this is pretty much a time when the manipulation is serving both people, right? So the person isn't necessarily being hurt in any way. It's even encouraging them to do better without being harmful to other people. So when the recipient of the influence is the gainer, while its initiator loses, we are talking about an altruistic covert impact. When only the initiator stands to gain, it occurs as a result of the egoistic covert influence manipulation, right? So manipulation, a lot of times the bad kind, is going to be when only one person, and that's the person who's doing the manipulating, actually benefits from it. All right, so we're going to move really quickly to a video by Jordan Peterson. It's going to be a very simple way at looking. I wouldn't say simple, but he breaks it down pretty clearly what manipulation sort of looks like, what it feels like, sort of where it comes from, but a very, very quick, brief explanation. All right, so we're going to get into that. And then after we read a little bit more, we're going to hear from a psychologist. All right, so let me play this next video, and then we'll get more into the article.
So I've seen people, for example, who are in families where probably nothing they were ever told was true. Like, it was never just true. It was always twisted and bent in some way by whoever was talking to them for the purposes of that person. Power or domination or positive illusion or delusion or something. Like, all the communication within the family was motivated. And so it's so awful to grow up in an environment like that, because you can't get a grip on what's real. And then, it can get worse than that, in that the person will tell you that they love you and they'll act all sweet, but every time you do anything that's even vaguely productive and useful, they'll just criticize you to death. And all the while telling you that they love you. It's really horrible. And that's all tangled up with deception and lies. And it's a weird thing, because if you look at the Freudian hypotheses, you'll notice that Freud attributed an awful lot of psychopathology to repression, right? But I think the distinction between repression and self-deception or deceit is very permeable. It's like, what's the difference between repressing something and lying to yourself about it? Well, Freud would say,
and so he makes really good points there when he's talking about it. He gets into Freudian, but I want you guys to hear really quickly what he's talking about in terms of how somebody, because I know it jumps right into what he said, but I want to make sure you guys didn't miss it. He talks about how growing up in a home where no one's ever honest with you or direct, or they're always sort of telling you things in a way where you have to guess, or there's a lot of mind games going on. He talks about how that has an impact on how you behave later in life. So let's hear that again really quickly. I know the video is short, but it's easy to miss it because he sounds like a boring philosopher.
so I've seen people, for example, who are in families where probably nothing they were ever told was true. Like, it was never just true. It was always twisted and bent in some way by whoever was talking to them for the purposes of that person. Power or domination or positive illusion or delusion.
So that's an important aspect, right, when it comes to manipulation. The people who sort of grew up in these types of households are used to somebody speaking or telling them things in a way to get something, right? To be in a position of power over them. Like, there's a lot of positioning that's sort of happening in this sort of environment where there's no clear, direct, predictable stream of communication or honesty. It's all just sort of like, I'm going to tell you things about how you need to behave or how you need to be that's going to benefit me. I'm not really going to teach you, for example, how to take care of something or how to do things. Don says that's a terrible home life. It is, because there's a lot of confusion. There's no answers that you're really getting about the things that you might be learning or going through in life. Like, and that's a really tough thing. People don't understand what it feels like to have nobody that's willing to like level with you and be like, hey, like, I understand you're going through this, but that's not how you move. Like, you got to move this way. Or, I know this seems really confusing. You probably don't get why the world is this way, but this is still what's going to be required of you. Like, they never really get that clear instructional communication that's supposed to help clarify anything that's going on in life. And it's usually for the purpose of that person who's in their home, or for that home environment to feel like there's a dominance, like somebody is dominant. For example, the parents might be this way because they want to be known as the dominant figures. They know everything. You got to come to them for everything. They're the all-knower, all that. There's no like dialogue. There's sort of just like orders being barked at you. Philosophies being thrown at you without really explaining. I think I experienced that. A lot of people, I promise you, a lot of people go through this, but I promise that a lot of people don't have accountability partners. Exactly. They don't have people who will be like, I totally understand what you went through, but that's not cool. You know, what you're doing is not right? You're not going to benefit from that. In the long run, you will only suffer when you live your life that way. There aren't a lot of people in these people's lives that have ever told them that, right? The person who raised them sort of just told them that they have to behave a certain way because that's how you don't challenge adults or you don't whatever, instead of telling them like, you want to treat people with respect, right? That way people respect you and want to be around you and trust that you're coming from a good place. Nobody's ever told them how to be. Robin says people mostly have enablers. Exactly. They have people who tell them, hey, forget what that person said about how you treated them. It's about how you feel. You had to get off what you were feeling in the moment. You had to get your point across. You're the man. You're this, you're that. People have enablers. They don't have people that are willing to hold them to task. The son says, the guy talking is Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. Yes, I'm aware. And like I said, sometimes you got to chew the meat and spit out the bones, right? The messenger might not be a perfect person, but they also might have a message, all right? He's a controversial dust mite, but he also is, in some ways, very knowledgeable about people and relationships.
Or something. Like all the communication within the family was motivated. And so, it's so awful to grow up in an environment like that because you can't get a grip on what's real. And then, it can get worse than that in that the person will tell you that they love you and they'll act all sweet, but every time you do anything that's even vaguely productive and useful, they'll just criticize you to death. And all the while telling you that they love you. It's really horrible. And that's all tangled up with deception and lies. And it's a weird thing because if you look at the Freudian hypotheses, you'll notice that Freud attributed an awful lot of psychopathology to repression, right? But I think the distinction between repression and self-deception or deceit is very permeable. It's like, what's the difference between repressing something and lying to yourself about it? Well, Freud would say often that repression occurs unconsciously, but I really wonder about that. I think that what happens is that something happened or you did something that you don't like and it's bothering you and you could think it through, but you just decide not to. You just don't think it through. So it's left vague and uncertain and, it's fairly emotionally salient, but you just refuse to think it through and you practice doing that until you've built up a habit of not thinking that through, and then you forget that you've built up the habit, and then it's like it's being repressed unconsciously. But I think that or at least you knew when you first did it. And so, when you meet people who are acting in a twisted and peculiar way, and you ask yourself, they're very manipulative, say you ask yourself, well, do they know what they're doing? The answer to that could be, well, no. But another answer could be, yeah, but they knew once. They knew when they made the decision to start acting like that, but after they did it 100 times or so and made it into an automatic routine, well, then they forgot its origin and now it runs autonomously. And so now they don't know, but they did know.
And that's a really good point that he makes about sort of the progression of people's behaviors, right? Their level of manipulation. They start out, again, like he sort of said, not really understanding, being very aware of it, but pushing it away from your awareness, right? Choosing not to deal with a certain thing until later on in your life, it builds into a set of habits and behaviors that you have that actually is harmful to other people, right? So in the beginning, you did know, right? You knew, hey, I'm behaving this way because of X, Y, Z, right? And instead of in that moment dealing with it and saying, okay, I got to figure out how to stop myself from behaving in this way just because I was raised that way, right? Just because I grew up in that environment. I have to learn when to stop. Instead of doing that, they just allow themselves to continue to turn away from the truth, who they really are, who they've become as a result of what they suffered through. They purposely turn away from growth, from evolving. You know how many people I see who I've dealt with who you can tell that they always come to the brink of holding themselves accountable, of moving forward, of leveling up. But when they get there, they make excuses, right? They tell themselves, well, this is just, I'm always like this. This is who I've been. I've seen this growing up, and so I turned into this type of person, or I saw this type of environment, and so I just became that way. I don't know how, right? And in that present moment, they might not actually know how, right? But they knew, like he's saying, at some point in their life, they understood that if they didn't deal with this nagging feeling, this nagging thought or behavior pattern that they know is not right, they know that they didn't enjoy this way of living. If they don't deal with it, they will become that. They know if they don't deal with that, that's what they will become. They will become just like what they hate, just like what they don't, what they detested about how they grew up, sort of the values that they wanted to detach themselves from. That's what they'll become. And so instead of dealing with it head on, they'll just turn away and say, well, this is just trauma. Oh, no, I can't. Oh, my life sucks so much. It sucks so much. So I just became so anxious. I don't like to do nothing. I don't want to. And it's okay, right? Sometimes it's okay to just feel like, fuck, I got a terrible lot in life. I grew up around the worst type of people, or I had the worst luck when it came to friends or relationships. But if you just dwell on that, you'll continue in that cycle. If you just dwell on the bad lot that you got in life, or the poor parenting that you received, or the piss poor friendships that you were in, piss poor relationships, you'll continue to cycle in and out of that. But if you choose to deal with it head on, then you've accepted accountability, and you've been able to apply changes to your life. Most people will never get to that application stage. They're stuck in the dwelling, in the feeling sad for themselves, grieving a life that they never had, experiences that they never had, feelings that nobody ever taught them to be, to believe in themselves, to learn. At some point, you have to make the choice. Hey, I know I was never affirmed. I know I was never told to love myself. I know I was never told to prioritize myself, but I understand today, as a 29-year-old, that I need to love myself, that I need to value myself, that I need to treat myself nicely. Then I know that. I'm old enough to understand and conceptualize that. But the problem is, people continue throughout their lives on the spectrum to make excuses for themselves, and so they allow themselves to become what they hate. So I like that he brings sort of this background knowledge of how somebody can sort of develop into somebody with really poor interpersonal traits. But what are people being held accountable to? That doesn't make any sense. So this is a Western problem, or it's a human problem. I don't know why y'all turn things into Western. We're not different just because we're on different continents. We might have different culture, but people are people. There's no difference here. So I had to dig deep recently and realize who I really have been comparing myself to all these years. I convinced myself I don't compare myself to anybody. I'm just me. Hey, and that might even be your way of not dealing with what you know that you compare yourself to. I've heard people say straight up, I used to compare myself to my friends. I used to hold my success up to my friends, and if I didn't achieve the same level of success as them, I felt less than, and it caused me to resent them. I've heard that. Some things need to be dealt with internally. Sometimes what you're feeling is a result of your poor pattern of thinking. Maybe you need to change your perspective. Sometimes you have to, and those are simple ways. Anyone have to be honest about yourself and how you're carrying out, how you're behaving, how you're regarding people, how you're regarding yourself. All right, let's continue. I want to hear a little bit more from Jordan Peterson, and then we'll continue with the show.
And so, this is the sort of point, and this is the real point of the existentialists, where clinical psychology and the claims of morality start to become very tightly aligned. And it's something that the psychiatric and psychological industries, so to speak, don't really tackle head on. My experience has been that in these situations, for example, where the person has 5 terrible things going on in their life, that there's just deception twisted in and strewn in all of that. People are betraying each other. There's no fidelity in the relationships. There's no clear and genuine communication. Everything's manipulation. No one admits to what they're really up to. There's a lot of false and saccharine love, which has absolutely nothing to do with love. It's all for appearance. And you cannot be healthy in a situation like that. I don't think, in my experience, apart from the tragedies of life, there is nothing that hurts people more than deception. Lies do people in. And that's an existentialist claim. The claim is, first, well, life is basically unbearable. That's an existentialist claim. And then there's the hope that with sufficient caution and attention, clarity of thought and speech, you can master it. You can master it to the point where you could even accept the fact that it's tragic. But if you multiply its tragedy with the use of deceit, it's like, forget it. Because, you know, it's one thing to be hurt. You know, maybe you break your leg, one thing. It's another thing to be attacked by 2 or 3 people who break your leg and do everything they can to demean you at the same time. It's like, lots of people break their leg and they're not traumatized. It's very few people who can go through the latter experience without being, you know, seriously and permanently damaged.
Sorry, guys. So he made a really good point there about the impact that it has. So, all right. So I'm going to go on to the next video, and we'll kind of jump in between this video and the article that I have to read on manipulation and sort of where that comes from. So I just want to read a little bit from that. All right. Let me pull that article up. It's so warm in there. It's literally 70. Like, we have to go from turning the heat on to putting it on, putting it off, or trying to put it like on as low as we can to have it still, like, you know, not freeze if it gets cold overnight. So, all right. So I'm going to go to the article really quickly. We're going to talk a little bit more about manipulation. All right. So the concept of manipulation has a direct and metaphorical meaning. The word manipulation, from the Latin manipulad, has long been used in a purely positive sense, to manage with skill, competently. The transition to metaphor was the use of this term in relation to the demonstration of various tricks and card games, where in addition to dexterity, concealing actions or true intentions, as well as carrying out all kinds of distracting procedures that divert the observer's attention, is appreciated. So, like, if you think about that, manipulation went from being a set of skills that helped you to influence people to being like this sneaky way of playing games, or like sort of just getting something off in like a sneaky way, like some of those magic tricks and stuff like that, right? So subsequently, we began to understand manipulation in its indirect sense as the desire to snatch control of another person, to hook, an attempt to turn a person into an obedient weapon, into a puppet, and manipulation in its direct sense as the desire to snatch control of another person, to hook, an attempt to turn a person into an obedient weapon, into a puppet, right? So manipulation later turns into something that's meant to serve the person, right? It has no real value for the other person, but for the one who's engaging in the manipulating, they want to take something, they want to get something out of that person, and they want to cause the person to do something in an indiscreet way. They don't want to straight up say, "Hey, I want you to hate my baby mother." Right? Here's an example. "Hey, I don't want you to hate my baby mother, but I mean, she don't come see the kids, she don't whatever." And what you're not understanding about that situation is there's reasons, right? There's a reason why, for example, their baby mother doesn't come see the kids. Maybe it's because every time they're around him, your baby, you know, the man you're dealing with, that there's like bigotry. Maybe they make it really difficult for it to be a comfortable situation. You know, maybe they try to make the person go all out of their way and just sort of make it impossible for that interaction to happen. So a lot of the times, that's really what it is. They really are trying to sort of gain something. They want you to hate that person, and so they're going to tell you things that isn't saying directly, "Hey, hate the person," but you would think, why wouldn't somebody come and see their kid? What kind of person is that? That will indirectly make you see that person differently, right? Because why wouldn't they want to see their kid, right? You had a parent, your parent wanted to see you. Who would you be if your parent didn't want to see you? How would that feel towards you? Because you aren't looking at it as like a reason just to dislike the person. You're just like being told some information about a person that you really don't understand why, right? Maybe you think it's just their way of cluing you in on who this person is. But it really is, they're really trying to influence you to see that person in a way that would make you dislike them. All right, let's continue with the next video, who is actually from a psychologist. Her name is her channel is Psychology with Dr. Anna. And when I was listening to this earlier, I got like sort of like some goosebumps. I'm just gonna say, and I'm not saying goosebumps because like, oh my God, I'm like so triggered, like trauma bond. Let's have a conversation. More so because I felt like the way she described all of these mindsets and characteristics, you can sort of see how that would play out in a relationship with somebody who is maybe abusive or manipulative. All right, so let us play that video now. And again, it's Psychology with Dr.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, I'm Anna. I'm a psychologist in training, a doctoral intern in clinical psychology. So if this is your type of content, I hope you decide to stay. Today we're talking again about the book Why Does He Do That by Lundy Bancroft. And he is a counselor who treated male abusers for over 30 years. We're going to be talking about what causes abuse. And yes, we are talking more specifically about male abusers because, as we'll see in the video itself and some of the things he talks about, the way that men and boys are socialized enables a type of abuse that obviously not all men actually end up acting on a lot.
And I just wanted to pause there because I noticed that when we try to have conversations like this, men will often feel like, well, women are trying to pathologize, right? They want us to believe that all men are just misogynistic and violent and aggressive, and this is how they all behave. And so everybody be afraid of men. But every time somebody tries to have this conversation, they always let you know this isn't how all men are going to be, but that men are socialized in this way, and it can result in this, especially in somebody who doesn't have a strong, positive role model. Somebody who's really willing to teach them how to be and sort of how to respect others. So, all right, let's continue.
A lot of men overcome these obstacles in this type of socialization, but for those that don't, this is very much the conceptualization that Bancroft comes up with in terms of why men become abusive. Now, I will say a lot of the cognitive and behavioral pieces about why people are abusive that we're going to talk about today apply to people of all genders. It's really just the part about male socialization that is specific to men or to people who are socialized to be male. So let's just get straight into it. What causes abuse?
All right. So just like she made a disclaimer, I have to make a disclaimer too. Again, I'm not going to sell you guys the idea that men are just these abusive creatures, but I do think it's important for us to understand the mentality of abusive people, how to recognize it, how to deal with it, and sometimes how to apply these things that we learn about abusive relationships, because everybody nowadays learns about narcissism, narcissistic abuse, abusers who are narcissistic. We learn about all of that, but do we really know how to apply these things to our life? All right, so let's continue.
The number one and only thing that causes a person's abuse is their decision to act abusive. Abuse is caused solely by that person's decision, actions, and moral compass that is askew. It is their choices, their behaviors, their actions that cause abuse. It is never the risk factors that cause their abuse. It is never society as a whole. It is never the...
So again, that's a disclaimer that some people aren't going to like, right? So even though she's describing the mentality of an abuser and sort of how these abusive behaviors can come to be, it's not an excuse. It's a reason. There is no list of reasons why somebody becomes an abuser. But these are things that can factor into how that these things cause them. And I think that's why the disclaimer is there, that this is just for informational and entertainment purposes only, because again, at the end of the day, you're going to have to view things for what they are in your real life, right? You're not just going to see something online that says, well, you know, if I pay attention to these 7 signs, I'll be able to avoid abusive people. It's not necessarily true. It's sort of just some things that can contribute to a certain mindset.
Victim, it is always the person choosing to be abusive. Now you might be saying, well, what about, people that seem to not want to be abusive, but it's more of an unconscious thing. To that I say, no one is ever abusive all of the time in every single situation that they wish they could be. There are people who are abusive at home or abusive with their intimate partner. They're not abusive at work, out in public, when the police comes over. That is because they decide when to be abusive and when not to. It is very, very rarely actually a matter of they just lose control and dissociate. And even if a person is under the influence of a substance really heavily, let's say they black out, they might not remember what they did the next day, but they knew what they were doing in the moment. A person who is under the influence is more vulnerable to abuse, but it is never that substance abuse actually causes someone to become an abuser, because that's not how it works. Substances can lower your inhibitions, but what happens when your inhibitions are lowered are on you. It is your instincts that you still have to be responsible for.
So this is the big one, right? It might not be exactly, you might not want to engage in that behavior, right? In hindsight, you might actually be like, that's not necessarily, hold on, the chat is throwing me off. Why do you people come here? Why do you people come here? Like, obviously you wanted to see me, and I understand. Hopefully it wasn't Tiny Draws that I accidentally timed out. Hold on. The chat be like distracting. I'm over here trying to have like a serious conversation. I'm gonna run it back for you guys so you guys can hear that.
To abuse, but it is never that substance abuse actually causes someone to become an abuser, because
exactly, it's still your inhibition. That's what I wanted to say, right? So for those men who like to say, "Oh, I was drunk, the alcohol made me not understand what I was doing," or whatever, it's still your instinct. It's still your instinct, right? It's your instinct that wanted to hit that person, that because you were upset, you felt like you could just, call them whatever names or treat them a certain way. Oh, damn, it was Tiny Draws. I'm sorry. I'm going to time you out for 10 seconds, and I'm going to get rid of this ugly, dirty foot Dominican from my chat in a second. Hold on. So let's continue. Again, it's your instinct. So you might not be doing it on purpose while you're drunk, but it was actually your instinct that led you to behave that way it's your behavior. No one is forcing you to become that way when you're drunk. Laugh when they're drunk. Some people want to have intercourse. Some people want to eat a lot. Why is your inhibition to, or is it that when you're uninhibited that you choose to hit people and be mean or be a mean drunk? Like, that's just who you are, unfortunately. That's a behavior that you have.
That's not how it works. Substances can lower your inhibitions, but what happens when your inhibitions are lowered are on you. It is your instincts that you still have to be responsible for. So the primary thing that causes abusive behavior is the decision on the abuser's part to let themselves have the permission to behave abusively. Bancroft talks about the abusive mentality. So how an abuser actually thinks, how they can justify in their head that they can choose to be abusive in a situation. First one is that an abuser is controlling. An abuser thinks that they have the right to decide what other people do with their lives. That one's pretty straightforward. They might control arguments and decision making, the personal freedoms of the other person, parenting, and so forth and so on. Aspect number 2 of the abusive mentality is that an abuser is entitled. This is important. Entitlement is the abuser's belief that he has a special status and that it provides him with exclusive rights and privileges that do not apply to his partner.
So that's a cocktail for disaster, right? So not only are you controlling, meaning you want direct supervision and last call and how everything is run, how people behave, how people treat each other, but you also want the ability to do whatever you want, right? So you don't have to obey those rules. You don't have to keep the peace and harmony like everybody else. You can just do whatever you want because you're special, right? There's an entitlement there that tells that person that their beliefs, their feelings are more important than the general peace among everyone, which is yeah. Let's continue.
The attitudes that drive abuse can largely be summarized by this one word. In other words, an abusive person believes that they are entitled to pretty much anything that they want and that supersedes completely other people's wants and needs. Bancroft says, my fundamental task as a counselor is to get the abusive man to expand his perception of his partner's and children's rights to their proper size and to shrink his view of his own rights down to where it belongs. Because abusers believe.
So basically what she said there is that a clinician who's dealing with somebody who's abusive like that is they're trying to get that person to understand it's not just about your needs. It's not about the way you want things to be carried out. Everybody else has needs and wants as well. And to get out of an abusive mindset, you have to start to factor in those people's needs and wants and put it on the same level as yours. You don't come before everybody, right? The man of the house isn't better than everybody else, right? He doesn't get final say. He doesn't get the best of the best, and everybody else gets his crumbs, right? To get out of that abusive mindset, that man has to stop seeing himself as the big cojones of the house, right? Maybe he's just the father. Maybe he's just the leader. He leads people. He shows everybody how to love each other and how to treat each other, right? He doesn't domineer. He doesn't make himself more important than everybody else. And so that's what they're trying to tell abusive people, whether male or female, I'm assuming, about themselves, right? You're not better than anybody else. So we're going to deflate you a little bit, right? Instead of you having this big head where you think you're the big bad man, you're all that matters. You make all the rules. You tell people when to jump and how high. You start to understand, okay, well, I want to jump when I feel like it, and so do my kids, right? Maybe they don't want to jump at the same time as me, right? Maybe they want to jump later. And so I have to sort of understand that as the person who's the abuser has to sort of understand that as well. Let's continue.
That those around them need to give them physical caretaking, sexual caretaking, deference to their tastes and opinions, and freedom from accountability. Another really, really important aspect of the abusive mentality is that an abuser will twist things into their opposites. This is usually caretaking, deference to their tastes and opinions, and freedom from accountability.
So that freedom accountability piece is where they can just keep hurting you over and over again, and you just forgive them, right? You never put any concessions in place. Hey, I'm not just going to forgive you this time. You have to show me for consistent period of time that you care about my feelings, that you're going to regard me as you know what I'm saying? They're actually going to make things that way. They're going to make you have to not hold them accountable. In order for the relationship to progress forward, you have to keep letting them hurt you, right? You have to keep letting them do what it is that they feel like it, and then come back and say, well, I'm sorry. They don't want to be accountable and say, hey, I need to stop being an asshole, right? Or I need to stop being a cheater. They will just accept them if they're a cheater, right? I have to stop being lazy and selfish. They want you to just accept them if they're still lazy and they're still selfish. You don't expect them to change, bro. You can't do that. What kind of person would you be? You don't love them. You don't care about them. You're not letting them just step all over you. You're not a real woman. You never really loved them. Or you're not a real man. You never really wanted to protect and provide for them. These are sort of the things that you'll hear from somebody who's trying to do that. Well, let's continue.
Another really, really important aspect of the abusive mentality is that an abuser will twist things into their opposites. This is one that people really, really struggle to understand when talking about abuse. You know, we see this a lot with Darvo. We see this with a lot of reverse victimization claims. People want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and because of the way we're socialized, unfortunately, that means that we give the benefit of the doubt to abusers way more than we do to survivors of abuse. The best way to get someone off your back about your abusive behavior is to make them believe that they are actually the abusive one. Gaslighting works kind of on a similar path. Someone will come to you and say, hey, I don't like how you did this and that, and they will immediately twist it into, you're so crazy, what are you talking about? I never did that. So how you initially come to them with a concern, and by the end of the discussion, you're the one that ends up feeling guilty. Blame deflection works the same way as well. You come to someone saying, hey, I don't like how you did this and that. Suddenly they've deflected to something completely different where you're off kilter and you end up feeling bad for them. When people
And that's a big one, right? Because a lot of the times the way these people move, these manipulators, these abusers, is you'll have legitimate concerns with their behavior, their treatment of you, and you'll come to them and say, hey, like, it's really not cool, for example, what's one way? It's really not cool that you just stay out all day after work with your friends, going out to different bars and restaurants, and you never invite me, right? That would be something that you would say to this person because they're really not spending time with you, right? They married you. Now that you guys are married, you don't really spend time with them. They just spend time socializing with their friends. They feel like they conquered you maybe. And so now you're just there on the back burner. And they don't feel like they have to spend time with you because they've already got you. And you're legitimately telling them like, hey, I don't really like that you got me, you turned me into a housewife, for example, and now you get to go work, hang out with people, do all types of things, and I just gotta stay home and do nothing. And when I tell you, hey, I feel like you're not spending enough time with me, I feel like our relationship is not blooming like it was, I feel like, sort of like being left out, they'll say, well, no, like it's you who doesn't want to hang out with me. Like you never, when I come home from work, you're not dressed to go to the strip club. So it's you. You're the one who doesn't want to. You just want to stay home and do nothing. Right? They'll literally flip the script on you and be like, oh, so you told me you don't like how I'm acting? Well, actually, I don't like how you're acting. That's how simplistic it is. But that's what they'll do, right? And they'll do it so smoothly and frequently that you're really like, damn it, is it really me? Am I sitting here getting mad and the whole time, like, I'm the one who's not showing myself to, like, want to go out? Like, it's not me who's, when they come back from work at 5 o'clock after I spent all day cooking, cleaning, taking care of children, and the fact that I'm not dressed ready to go to the club lets them know that I'm not interested in having any more of a social life, that I've actually been, it's actually me just being an asshole, right? They'll literally try to make you feel like you bringing up concerns actually made them think of concerns that they had for you, and they're the exact concerns that you have about them, right? Like literally flipping the script, and it'll make you go, it'll drive you crazy because they'll be so sure of it. Like they won't even, their poker face when it comes to this is crazy. They'll be straight up like, are you serious? You're really telling me right now that I'm the one who's not wanting to spend time with you? I'm not attuned to you and the children. It's me. You're the one who, when I come back from work, you don't look like a Barbie doll, right? You haven't done your hair and makeup. Your lips are ashy. You got baby baba on you. Right, they'll literally try to drive you crazy. That's what these people, these abusive types, these manipulative type of people will do. But let's continue.
will defend themselves against abuse. The abuser uses that to say, see, you're the abusive one, you're the unhinged one, you're crazy, you need help. Without acknowledging themselves. Never will you actually hear an abuser take responsibility for their actions. They might take responsibility for a little bit here and there to say, oh yeah, you're right, I shouldn't have had so much to drink that day. You're so right, I shouldn't have slept with this other person. But they will never take full responsibility, because even when they do take responsibility, it is still to deflect from the real issue. The abuser's highly entitled perceptual system causes him to mentally reverse aggression and self-defense. He gives the example of one of his clients who attacked his female partner in a life-threatening way, and then when his partner fought back, he defined her actions as violence toward him. And when he then injured her further, he claimed he was defending himself against her abuse. When I challenge my clients to stop bullying their partners, they twist my words around.
Obviously, this clinician who deals with abusive men isn't stupid, right? He understands this guy. He understands that instead of being honest and saying, hey, when she made me mad, I got up and shoved her and, slapped her across the face, right? Actually, I'm going to say she got aggressive with me, right? I'm not going to, yeah, they will blame you. I'm not going to mention the fact that I jumped up in her face, shoved her, slapped her in the head, and then in response to that, she dropped me, jumped it, and yoked me up by the back, right? I'm not going to mention that, right? I'm just going to say she was abusive towards me instead of being real and saying I initiated physical violence. And so in retaliation, she responded with self-defense moves that I'm going to say her manipulative an abuser can be. They will tout themselves as the victim, knowing that they initiated the violent contact, right? And so when they're dealing with clinicians who are trying to rehabilitate them, trying to teach them that their aggressive and violent behavior is sort of just like a steamroll of their inability to self-regulate and to hold themselves accountable. Because you wouldn't mean to say, hey, you made me do it. You made me slap you in the head. You didn't make me. I just couldn't handle an ego blow. I couldn't handle the fact that I felt like you were emasculating me. And so what I did was resort to physical violence, right? I wasn't mature enough to self-regulate when I felt like you were attacking me with just, let's say, your own belief system, right? They'll say a woman is emasculating them because the woman will say, hey, I'm not used to men, that I'm the only one working and they just stay at home. They'll be like, well, you're trying to emasculate me. Not necessarily, right? Maybe that person was trying to encourage you, hey, as the man, and since you want to be regarded as this big man, you should go and get a job, right? Because I'm used to men that are providers who have finances and things that can help lead a family. They'll take that as you trying to emasculate them. And they'll say, well, you made me angry, right? You tried to emasculate me, so you made me hit you. Or you cussed me out because I called you the B word. And so while you were cussing me out, I got upset that you were raising your voice at me. And so I hit you. Or I shoved you. Or I shot you. Or whatever violent act that some of these bandits will do, and then try to flip it on you when you respond to who they are. It's very dangerous, right? So that's why it's important to be honest about this mentality and who they are. Let's continue.
Just as they do their partners. They accuse me of having said things that have little connection to my actual words. An abuser says, you're saying I should lie down and let her walk all over me because I told him that intimidating his partner is unacceptable no matter how angry he is. He says, your approach is that whatever she does is okay because she's a woman, but because I'm the man, there's much stricter rules he applies to her.
Y'all hear that? Does that sound like the manosphere? I'm going to play it back for you guys. Does that sound like the manosphere, right? Where they'll literally say that you guys let women believe that they can do such, in order to escape accountability for how they behave, for how they treat the people that they're in relationships with. They will literally blame this otherworldly creature, right? Society, this big beast that's lurking in the background, telling men, hey, women can do whatever they're not looking at reality. They're just creating a beast in their mind that is responsible for why they behave or act a certain way. Society makes women look. This is what you'll hear from the Red Pill, right? So let me rewind it a little bit so you guys can hear what she has to say about that.
She lie down and let her walk all over me because I told him. Challenged my client, then injured her further. He took his female partner in a life-threatening way, and then when his partner fought back, he defined her actions as violence toward him. And when he then injured her further, he claimed he was defending himself against her abuse. When I challenge my clients to stop bullying their partners, they twist my words around just as they do their partners. They accuse me of having said things that have little connection to my actual words. An abuser says, "You're saying I should lie down and let her walk all over me because I told him that intimidating his partner is unacceptable no matter how angry he is." He says, "Your approach is that whatever she does is
Right? Notice what she says there.
having said things that have little connection to my actual words." An abuser says, "You're saying I should lie down and let her walk all over me because I told him that intimidating his partner is unacceptable no matter how angry he is." He says, "Your approach is that whatever she does is okay because she's a woman, but because I'm the man, there's much stricter rules for me because I pointed out his double standards and insisted that he should live by the same rules he applies to her." Abusive mentality number 4 is that an abuser disrespects their partner and considers themselves to be superior to their partner. They view their partner as less than in pretty much any sphere that you can think of, any sphere that they consider important, really. And this helps them to objectify and then dehumanize their partner so that they can better appease their guilt when they then abuse their partner, so that they can sort of justify it in their head to the point where over time they cease to even see their partner as human and they don't even really feel that bad anymore. Abuse and respect are diametric opposites. You do not respect someone whom you abuse, and you do not abuse someone who you respect. Abusive mentality number 5, an abuser confuses love and abuse. Abuse is not about you love this other person so much that it just drives you crazy. You become so jealous and possessive and controlling because you just love them so much. Abuse is about loving yourself so much that you don't care about what the other person feels. People love each other immensely. I think we can probably all agree that one of the strongest loving bonds between creatures is that of a parent and child. And in a parental relationship, you would never say, "Oh, she's being abusive to her daughter because she just loves her so much." That's not how it works. Passion can exist in a romantic or sexual relationship without it being abusive. Abusive mentality number 6 is that an abuser is manipulative. If someone were abusive in really physical ways all the time, their partner probably would not have much motivation to stay. It's about this intermittent reinforcement between, I don't know if I'm going to get abused today or if I'm going to get the nice version of them. It really gets people hooked. So some of the ways that abusers switch up their personality and manipulate people to keep them on the line are changing their moods abruptly and frequently so that you can't tell what you're going to get that day, sort of keeping you constantly off balance, constantly walking on eggshells, denying the obvious about what he is doing or feeling.
And that's what can make it really difficult for some people, right? For some people, they really like the good, really like those good moods. The times when that person is really sweet and caring and loving. And so they'll fall for that. They'll say, "Oh, wow, when this person is attuned to me, they're really attuned to me," right? It feels like love. It feels deep, strong, emotional, passionate. It all feels really, really good, right? But what sometimes they won't put enough weight in is how bad it'll feel too. When that person is in a bad mood, they're vindictive, they're verbally abusive, they want to break you down, lower your self-esteem, they'll accuse you of certain things. EB says the effects on the mental are devastating. Yes, because it's literally like they're teaching you to be afraid to move, to think for yourself, right? To question what it is that you'd say around them, around other people, right? If you're somebody who constantly is jealous or accusing you of being a cheater, they might cause you to carry yourself in a way that you feel it is closing yourself off. They might convince you to dress very conservative, right? They might convince you that like you can't have conversations with males, that you can't act with males, and so you'll be very nervous when you're around men, right? Or if you're wearing a certain beautiful outfit, you'll always think, well, maybe this person thinks that I'm trying to impress somebody else, right? And so I have to dress down. Let me dress going for a run, because then they won't think that I'm looking for another man or another woman or whatever, right? That's a lot of how it is. It's making you uncomfortable, right? It's causing unpredictability. You don't know how that person's going to react, so you're going to be on eggshells. You're always going to be questioning what it is you're doing and saying, how you're carrying yourself, am I being too overtly sexual just because I have lipstick on or lip liner? Right? Is the fact that I got a new wig, right? Does that mean I'm trying to attract a white man or another type of man, right? Why don't I want to look like my natural hair self? This is some of the things that you'll hear men who are like this, or women who are like, even women. Someone will be like, well, you're going out with gray sweatpants. Does that mean you're trying to go find a new woman? No. These are just the sweatpants you chose to wear today, right? And you're going somewhere casual, wouldn't you wear sweatpants? But this is what they'll do to make you feel like there's things that you're doing subconsciously to betray them, to show them that they should be worried about you betraying them, that maybe you're not trustworthy. They'll apply that. Oh, you're putting on makeup before you go to the grocery store? Are you going to go cheat on me? And a lot of times with the cheating one, they're trying to deflect from what it is they're doing, right? They're going to call you a cheater because they know when you go to the grocery store, they're going to be swiping down IG, texting bitches, and then deleting it when you come back, right? And really trying to convince you, hey, just because you don't see any messages in my phone doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not messaging other people, right? This is behaviors that they'll engage in to make you feel like there's things that you need to be doing to prove that you're trustworthy, and they're the one whose trust is being broken, betrayed. You know, it's a very stressful way of living, and they'll make your life because you're going to start questioning yourself. Let's continue.
Denying it to your face, refusing to admit it, which can drive you crazy with frustration. He may call you irrational for getting so upset by his denial, convincing you that what he wants you to do is what's best for you, making his selfishness look like generosity, getting you to feel sorry for him, getting you to blame yourself or other people for what he does, using confusion tactics and arguments such as changing the subject, insisting you are thinking or feeling things that you aren't, twisting your words, lying or misleading you about his actions, desires, or reasons for doing certain things, getting you and the people you care about turned against each other by betraying confidences, being rude to your friends, telling people lies about what you supposedly said about them, charming your friends, and then telling them bad things about you, and so forth. So the manipulation that is more sort of subtle, more covert, a lot of times, is what keeps people entrenched in that pattern where the more escalated forms of abuse can take place. Abusive mentality number 7. He strives to have a good public image. Abusers often are very preoccupied with how other people and the public and the general world perceives them. They want to be seen as a good person. They want other people to not tarnish their reputation, which is part of the reason why they get so angry when people actually call them out on their abusive behavior. The fact that they can put on this clean face in front of everyone else where they are generous and kind and respectful and soft-spoken, mild-mannered proves.
And that's a really good point she made about this type of person, right? You'll constantly hear this person trying to get the validation of people. They'll always say, well, like, you know, I'm a good guy, I have values, I have character and integrity. That's what you'll hear from these type of people. They want people to believe that they have all of these amazing traits that they don't. They worry more about how the outside sees them. Exactly. They have no foresight, right? They don't understand how important it is to have your people, the people that you're with, that are taking care of you, that are part of your family, whatever. Those people, it's important for them to respect you, love you, see the value in you, right? You have to teach them how, you know, that you respect them, that you love them, that you're trustworthy. That's things that we all have to do. You can't just be an asshole your whole life and expect your family and friends to love you. No, they're going to be like, you're an asshole. And these people are often more worried about others, and they don't care how they're making the people around them, the people who take care of them, the people who are part of their family and all that. They don't care. Some men you'll see, they don't care how their children view them. They don't care if their children love them or respect them. They care about, they care more about how their peers see them, or their employer, or whoever, right? Maybe Hollywood. Maybe they don't care how their child feels. They care how the public views them. These are the type of people that they sort of are. This is how they regard the people closest to them.
That they are making a choice when they are abusive behind closed doors, when they are abusive to the people they consider it's not important to be idealized by, or people that are easier to pick on, or people that they think won't tell others. The observers think he's such a nice guy, he's just not the type to be abusive. She must have really hurt him. The abuser's nice guy friend helps him feel good about himself. My clients say to me, I get along fine with everyone but her. One of the most important challenges.
And that's a big one, right? Because the people who they're friends with don't have to deal with them day in and day out, right? They don't have to be verbally abused. They don't have to be ignored. And they don't have to worry about being unnecessarily scrutinized, right? That's not how they treat those friends and those outside groups. With that person that they live with, that they can sort of get off whatever it is they're trying to get off in the home without affecting the person, without an audience or other people even seeing how they're affecting the person, that they'll do. Let's continue.
And by the men's charming persona. Abusive mentality number 8. An abuser feels justified in abusing. They come up with all sorts of excuses, rationalizations, justifications for why they do the things that they do. There is no shortage. Even if they say, okay, yes, I did this, in the back of their head, there's always this little bird chirping saying, yeah, but you're justified because of this and that, which in reality, nothing justifies abuse. Okay? Nothing justifies abuse. Abusive men are masters of excuse making. When they aren't blaming their partners, they blame stress, alcohol, their childhood, their children, their bosses, or their insecurities. More importantly, they feel entitled to make these excuses. Abusive mentality.
Exactly, right? If somebody calls them to task and says, hey, well, like, you don't get to just treat your family like that because you don't get to just treat your spouse or your employees poorly because you're stressed out, right? They want to be able to say, hey, I'm stressed this week, like I'm just having a tough week, that's why I'm being an asshole, I'm sorry, and just continue to be an asshole. No, they need to adjust their behavior. But a lot of these people will want you to accept the excuses they make about why they treat you poorly and never change, than to hold them to task and say, hey, I get that you're upset, but you still have to speak to me with respect, right? You still have to treat me with respect. You still have to be grateful of what I'm doing, of what I've sacrificed, or of what I've offered to you. You don't get to just bypass basic respect because you're having a bad day. But they'll want to. They'll want you to accept their apology no matter how they've treated you, no matter how much they've disrespected you, how out there they put you, right? How degrading they were to you. They still want you to accept and love them and just allow them to continue to behave the way they're behaving, with leaving if they treat you poorly. It's unreasonable. Let's continue.
Number 9, abusers deny and minimize the abuse. Side freezer will say, I did this, okay, but I was justified in doing it, and it wasn't that bad. Let's continue reading. I frequently encounter court personnel who say, well, she accuses him of abusing her, but he denies it. They then drop the matter as if the man's denial closes the case. They also tell me he says she does the same things to him, so I guess they abuse each other. This kind of denial and cross-accusation tells us nothing about whether the woman is telling the truth. If the man is abusive, of course he is going to deny it. If he were ready to accept responsibility for his actions and relationships, he wouldn't be abusive. Most of the men in my groups admit to some abusive behavior, although they don't see it as abusive, of course, but they acknowledge only a small portion of what they have actually done, as I learned when I interviewed the abused partners. And abusive mentality number 10 is that abusers are possessive. So we talked about how abusers objectify and dehumanize their partners. If you see your partner as an object, then of course you're going to treat them as an object, and you're going to treat them as a possession that is yours. to do whatever you want with that no one else can play with, so to speak. So we talked about how abuse is always caused by that person's decisions, and then we talked about some of the mentalities that comprise why that person decides to make those decisions. Now let's also talk about why this comes to be, the cognitive and behavioral aspects that cause someone to become abusive in the first place, to develop this sort of mentality. So abuse is caused by a person's cognition, so their attitudes, their beliefs, their values, their thoughts, and those cognitions are learned, usually socialized, usually from childhood, and then they are reinforced by society and the abuse itself. So let's start with how these cognitions are learned. People who are socialized as male experience a great deal of messaging from society, from our culture, that it is okay to be abusive, especially towards women. Family is really important here. So interestingly, Bancroft talks about how having an abusive mother doesn't really correlate to becoming abusive later on in life. Having an abusive father does. If you are a little boy who sees your father being abusive to your mother, then you are more likely to actually become abusive yourself. Because think about it, it makes sense. If you as a little boy identify as a masculine figure and your masculine role model behaves in this way and justifies it and blames it on your mother, understandably you're going to internalize the message that this is what it means to be a man, and actually there's nothing wrong with this. Actually, maybe this is what love is. Peers and a person's neighborhood also play a crucial role in how you're going to learn those initial cognitions and attitudes. Who you have in your friend group is immensely important. I see it as a huge red flag when someone is dating a man whose friends are all extremely misogynistic and or abusive. I see that as birds of a feather flock together, because one of the most important things for all humans is to be included socially, to feel like you belong in a group, that you are behaving in a way that is in accordance with the norms of whatever group or subgroup you're a part of. Any other role models are also important. If you look up to certain people that have abusive behaviors, like celebrities or so forth, media and TV, that goes hand in hand with who your role models are. Who you see on TV, who you see in music videos, who you hear in songs, politicians in power, all of these are sort of role models that normalize certain behaviors. Bancroft says, fans of these kinds of performers have been known to state defensively, come on, it's just humor. But humor is actually one of the powerful ways a culture passes on its values. If a man is already inclined towards abuse because of his earlier training or experience, he can find validation in such performances and distance himself even further from empathy for his partners. So please, never excuse horrible, misogynistic, abusive takes as it's just blowing off steam or oh, he's just joking. That is not valid. Religious beliefs have also been justified to entrench people in abusive power dynamics between men and women. I don't think I need to go too much into this. I think we kind of all acknowledge that all religions can be taken to a point where that is what happens. Legal systems also not only
So I'm rewinding it because she made a really good point that I want to make sure that we don't pass over quickly. Hold on, guys. Let me play that part.
excuse horrible, misogynistic, abusive takes as it's just blowing off steam or oh, he's just joking. That is not valid. Religious belief.
That is a big one, right? You'll hear these men, bandits, rim brothers, whatever you want to call them, whatever name that you've come up for this depraved group of males who gets online and has very raw, aggressive takes about women, right? They're not just jokes. They're not just, these are passing down problematic thought patterns regarding women, how to treat women, beliefs about women that can be very dangerous, that can lead to dangerous behaviors, right? So it's not just a joke. A lot of men will make these sick type of jokes and be like, well, I'm just playing. I don't really believe that. It's just a joke. Where does that joke come from? Who have you heard make jokes about domestic violence, about rape, and all those other things that are just terrible things for people to make jokes about, that you hear these bandits make jokes about, and they want you to believe it's not coming from a dark place? Let's continue.
beliefs have also been justified to entrench people in abusive power dynamics between men and women. I don't think I need to go too much into this. I think we kind of all acknowledge that all religions can be taken to a point where that is what happens. Legal systems also not only teach, but also reinforce that abuse is okay. For hundreds and perhaps thousands of years, the domestic assault of women has been considered a necessary tool for a man to maintain order and discipline in his home, to make sure that his superior intelligence rules, and to avoid the mushrooming of the hysterical, short-sighted, and naive qualities that men widely attribute to women. Even fairy tales have very misogynistic, abusive undertones, weird, coercive themes that, if we really get down to it, are pretty concerning. And I think there are institutions that are trying to change that, like Disney trying to appropriate these fairy tales and make them more digestible for a more woke culture. Unfortunately, that doesn't really change where it originated from. I'm not saying that fairy tales don't have some value. I think mythology and legend is incredibly important for our psychological development. I'm also not going to sit here and start crying over the propaganda in Frozen like Jordan Peterson, but I think it's important to acknowledge that slapping a woke label over something or changing the superficial aspects of something doesn't really change the abusive origins and the messaging that is sent to earlier generations. The adult entertainment industry is also hugely responsible for the dehumanization and objectification of women and the normalization of male violence against women, to the point where even women have internalized it and think that that is what love is supposed to look like. Bancroft says that most of this content can function as training manuals for abusers, whether they intend to or not, teaching them that women are unworthy of respect and only valuable as sex objects for men. And how from before we start learn very early on through socialization that
let me see, Psychology with Dr. Anna, she says, and she is reviewing Lundy Bancroft that sort of talks about this concept. Is that my cat? What you been doing under there? Sleeping? Sorry. So Psychology with Dr. Anna. She has really good takes. I think she does a pretty reasonable job of breaking it down to apply it to real life, regular life, whatever you want to call it. She doesn't speak in like parables or anything. She makes it very, very easy for you to understand. So if you're interested, I could put her link in the chat and check her out. All right, let me do that and continue the video.
that they are not to blame for their own behavior when it hurts other people. Bancroft gives the example of school shooters who are predominantly white boys who have learned that they are entitled to something from society, and when they are disillusioned with that entitlement, take it out on women. Headlines have described these events as kids killing kids, when close to 100% of them have involved boys killing kids. In some cases, it has been revealed that the killings were related to boys' hostility towards females. Urgent need to confront the anti-female attitudes among these boys was never mentioned as a strategy for preventing future school violence. So that's how these abusive cognitions are learned, and now let's talk about how they are reinforced in different ways. Because you know how it is, you learn something, and then the more it gets rewarded, and the more other things get.
So she made a great point, and I don't know how many people have actually been able to sort of catch why a person did it. Like I think, like for example, the incel, wasn't it the guy in California or somewhere? I forget exactly where on the West Coast. When he wrote a big manifesto and was like, I couldn't get women, basically, or like women didn't want to with me and all that. That is something, they made a good point. They don't really find, instead of like trying to prevent these guys from coming to the schools and pew-pewing everybody, I do think that there's some prevention tactics that I've never heard them take into account, right? They don't talk to men and say, hey, women don't have to accept your advances. They don't have to like you. They don't have to say hi when you compliment their body or their hair. You're not entitled to a response from a woman, especially if she doesn't want to. If she looks at you and she sees a bum-ass nigga, if she doesn't want to respond to you or talk to you, You shouldn't be able to take that as a grudge and then later go and pew pew a yoga studio, right? That's a lot of that's a lot of these cases of these lone white boys, whatever, who are going into facilities and deleting people. It's their entitlement to women, to relationships, to physical intimacy. That's a big issue that we're having in the world today, is people's entitlement. Let's continue.
Punished, the more entrenched you get in that pattern. Bancroft gives the example of a father who starts screaming whenever his wife asks him to do the dishes. And obviously the next day when the dirty dishes are piling up, no one dares ask him for anything because they're scared to. He has in essence punished their behavior, and he gets rewarded because he doesn't have to do his half of chores. Over time, the man grows attached to his ballooning collection of comforts and privileges. Here are some of the reasons why he may appear so determined not to stop bullying. Number one, the intrinsic satisfaction of power and control. Obviously, we're human. It feels good to have power and control. It makes us feel important. It strokes our ego, and that in and of itself is sort of a reward, a psychological reward. Number two, he gets his way, like in that example. In the end, he got what he wanted, and now he doesn't have to do it ever again because he punished certain behavior in his family. Number three, he has someone to take his problems out on. He has sort of like this cathartic punching bag that he can use at all times. And even though catharsis doesn't actually really help with emotion regulation, it can certainly feel relieving in the moment. He gets free labor, leisure, and fun. Pretty self-explanatory. He gets to be the center of attention with priority given to his needs. He doesn't really have to think about other people. He can only focus on himself. Who wouldn't want that? He gets financial control. He gets to run things. He gets to decide how finances are used. He ensures that his career, his education, and his goals are prioritized. This is a common theme that we'll see in couples with abusive patterns, is one person is always self-sacrificing and the other person always has priority given to their needs, whereas when the other person actually requires a sacrifice, the abusive partner doesn't want to do anything. Public status of being a partner and or a father without the sacrifices. People get to say, oh my god, he's such a doting father because he changed the diaper once, or he's a husband, look at this beautiful ring that he got her, without actually treating the people around him well. He gets the approval of his friends and relatives. For people who are in abusive circles with abusive friends, they get strokes for knowing how to control their partner, for putting her in her place from time to time, and for ridiculing her complaints. His friends and relatives may even bond with him on the basis of his view of women in general as being irrational, vindictive, or avaricious. And lastly, double standards are a huge reward. Who wouldn't want one set of rules for them and another completely more restrictive set of rules for everyone else? It makes life extremely easy. It makes it easy to get what you want from other people and not have to ensure that you have to do the same in return. This is what people from like the manosphere preach constantly. Different set of rules for me than for my woman. You're literally describing abuse. What you're describing is abuse, and somehow you think this is something to brag about. People who understand abuse understand that that's what you're doing. You're not being slick. So that is a rundown. That concludes our series on Why Does He Do That by Lindy Bancroft. Buy the book. It's in the description box. We barely just scratched the surface in this mini-series.
All right, so I think she did a pretty good job of sort of explaining the mindsets of an abuser and how they sort of become who they are and how they sort of treat the people around them. All right, so I'm going to move on to my next video. All right, so we looked at how an abuser is made. All right, so the next one is actually going to be a conversation that these three podcasters have. I thought was pretty interesting. I always like to hear the takes sometimes that men have about the problematic takes that they hear, that we all hear, unfortunately, from the red pill and these rim cell, incel bandits. Excuse me. I like when they break down all of those talking points, as well as like the sort of narrative about women and men sort of challenging that. So the conversation today that they're having is about the good guy, right? We always hear about this proverbial good guy who is always going to be picked last, right? The Pookie or the Ray Ray or whatever you want to call it.
We're going to be dealing with...
He will get precedence. He will be able to have the pick of the litter, but this great guy has to settle for the crumbs. And their conclusion in this video was that that great guy is nothing but an F-boy, right? He's a little termite who really is very self-involved, but he wants to pass himself off as being this great, all-giving, all-loving person. When they can be actually troublingly transactional and just sort of lack traits that show that they're actually caring of other people. So let's get into this one, the great guy, or the myth of the great guy.
A listener question, a question from the lovely Maylen, who asks us about the phenomenon of spiritual fuckboys. We are going to be talking about people who aren't quite what they appear. Before I met my current boyfriend, I got a bit stuck in a situationship with a guy who was doing men's group therapy, could have really deep conversations about feelings, seemed self-aware and aware of how the past had affected him, could share emotions and cry with me, and yet was utterly unable to commit. And in fact, after I cut it off with him, I found out he had been seeing other women despite telling me we were dating exclusively. I think sometimes we fall into the trap of seeing a guy that seems emotionally aware, and we see that as honesty, availability, and overall attractive qualities. I would go as far as to say that in my experience, the guy I was seeing was probably using all of that, quote, wokeness to keep me around in limbo in a very manipulative but covert way. I believe the term for those guys is spiritual fuckboys. They basically use their knowledge and experience of emotional connection to deepen the bond with women, but still have a relationship or other trauma-related excuse to be on the brink of commitment but never fully in. Particularly nowadays when men are opening up to spirituality, men's work, trauma healing, and this information and lingo is readily available. Now, is spiritual fuckboys. They basically use their knowledge and experience of emotional connection to deepen the bond with women.
So what they're talking about there is somebody who knows how to mimic empathy, right? They know how to pretend like they empathize with people, like they can see somebody else's point of view. He talked about crying with you, right? Being able to get you to believe that they're sympathizing with you, that they're actually being considerate of you, when they're really not, right? They're being very extremely self-serving, but they want you to believe that they're not self-serving and dismissive of your needs. Let's continue.
But still have a relationship or other trauma-related excuse to be on the brink of commitment but never fully in. Particularly nowadays when men are opening up to spirituality, men's work, trauma healing, and this information and lingo is readily available. Thank you for all your help.
Wow. I don't know why, I just find it so funny. Can't you just picture him?
I'm cycling through various caricatures. I'm thinking like traveling guy who lives around a beach and wears a lot of shell necklaces and beads and braids and stuff. I'm thinking that guy. I'm thinking dude who leads like yoga seminars.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, therapy guy who looks like a gentle, masculine, in touch, emotional guy, but he's also just like, you can't pin me down. I don't want to define this. Don't limit me. Or he's like, I've got all these traumas, and that's his story.
Stephen, would you say that he normally has the unique pairing of masculinity and all of these apparently emotionally vulnerable and available qualities. Would you say masculinity tends to be a key part of the equation?
Yeah, I think in general, yes. I think he can look like he embodies a great unique pairing of being a active guy who's also emotional. And like Audrey says,
kind of alpha.
Like Audrey says, he's got a lot of the language, which is like, oh, this isn't just like your typical bro in front of video games who's just like, oh, I don't care about that stuff. He's into all that stuff, so he does know the language of therapy. He does know.
You know, these can be the worst type of guys to deal with, right? Because they've always, like I mentioned earlier, they're on the brink of becoming better people, of taking accountability for their behavior, of applying the changes and things that they're supposed to do to become better people. Excuse me, they're always on the brink. They can see what they need to do, but they're never actionable. They're never actionable. They always escape accountability, escape evolving by finding an excuse. Well, hey, I have a trauma of whatever, of working, right? And so they never get a job again. And when you try to push them to get a job, they say, well, you must not understand or care what I've gone through. This is a trauma that I have. What's wrong with you? Work traumatizes me. Getting a job traumatizes me. I don't want to be treated by the establishment like a slave. Don't expect me to work. What's wrong with you? And they use it as a way to lower your expectations of them. They want you to accept the fact that they're never going to have a job or bring any income into your house, right? Because they have trauma. They have trauma. And so they'll sell you, oh, well, there's ways around that. I can do something else. I can, I can sell like whatever. They'll literally, let me stop being messy, but it's like they will use those things that they've gone through, those vulnerabilities that they share with you as a excuse to continue some level of behavior, and it's a trick that they think that they're really good at. Let's continue.
He knows how to quote all these people, and so yeah, he's kind of also he's got all the language as well.
Don't bring beautiful, wonderful Eckhart into this.
What a twist that would be if Eckhart's work is just producing fuckboys.
Here's my thing, though.
That's not his intention, I'm sure.
We should sleep together tonight. Think about it. Think about what Eckhart says, the power of now. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now. Together we can make a new earth.
Here's my thing, though. I'm not saying all those guys are frauds or anything like that. I think there can just be a massive lack of self-awareness in some people. Like, I think some of those masculine, I'm a spiritual bro types kind of might believe their own bullshit. And they do kind of think they're really sensitive and in touch, but their masks maybe a massive self-obsession or a massive ego or just insensitivity. Like they're really sensitive to their needs and stuff, but not when it actually comes to someone else's. They're not very sensitive.
That's interesting.
And I'll take that, right? Maybe some people just lack self-awareness, right? They don't understand. You said bums hate to clock in. Listen, the last thing a bum ass nigga wants to do is go and clock in to work, all right? But he made a good point here. Sometimes it's a lack of awareness, right? I think those are few and far between the term, right? I think most of the time, they're aware of work to be better. And so for those type of people, I'll always say they know. They're aware. They just don't want to take the task of doing what they need to do to improve their behavior. They just want to keep making excuses. They don't ever want to take accountability. They just always want to find an excuse, even if it's an old excuse, and say, well, I was raised in a household where they didn't expect people to go to work. And so I don't want to go to work. And at that point, you tell them, well, hey, I'm sorry that's how you were raised, but in reality, people have to go to work, right? People have to do what they need to do to take care of themselves, their families, their children, whatever it is. There's no excuses, but they will always divert back to those excuses because they feel like that's a legitimate reason. And if you push back, you're insensitive to them. They're not being insensitive to you by using that as an excuse to be a poor partner, a poor financial manager, whatever the case may be. Let's continue.
And a red flag for this is the conversation, them getting high on the sound of their own voice. Because I think sometimes the grandiose language and the experience and the vision and all of this, we can get caught up in it, right? Like, oh my God, this person is amazing at communicating. But paying close attention to the fact that, are they actually interested in what you're saying back to them? Or is this just more of a kind of an opportunity for a monologue?
Yeah. I haven't said one word in this conversation. We've been on this date for 3 hours.
Enough about you. Let's talk about me.
Yeah, I think one of the giveaways, I think, is when people spoon feed you their values. When they talk about, I just think it's so important to be kind. I just think it's really so important to be kind to people. And, I just really value honesty. I think that's one of the most important things to me is honesty in other people, and in this place you just don't see enough honesty.
And if you have to say it, I'm a really genuine person, probably not a really genuine person. If you have to say that,
let me tell you, a monologue, it'd be tiring because you're just like, oh, they really want to get off this whole soliloquy just to say one simple ass thing. I'm actually coming to try and tell you something that's going on. Why am I getting a monologue from you? Do you even care what I was just about to tell you? It can be confusing like that.
that you value honesty, you're probably saying it because you think it sounds good rather than because you're living it day to day as your value.
Yeah. Think about how important what I'm about to say must be for me to interrupt my own video. Well, here's why it's important. It's going to change your love life, and it's free. If you want to know why someone may have faded out, why they may have disappeared, why all of a sudden it felt like the momentum was lost with this person, go to whyhe'sgone.com, where I talk about the main reasons someone disappears. Go check it out, whyhe'sgone.com, and now let's go back to the video.
If I'm looking for signs, the spoon feeding is a really interesting point, Matt. I think if anyone's spoon feeding you too much, that's where your skepticism should start to creep in a little bit.
Yeah, why aren't you just being this? Why are you talking about
show,
being
don't tell.
this?
You don't need to show me.
For example, they'll tell you, I love you, I care about you, I want you, I'm going to protect and provide for you, but they're not doing that. They just keep telling you over and over again what it is that they do without any action, right? They might tell you they love you, but they're not treating you like they love you. They're trying to humiliate and humble you while telling you that they're in love with you and you're the best thing to ever happen to them. But why would they be trying to humiliate you if you're the best thing that happened to them? I used to just think, wow, this person talks a lot, but I finally learned that monologues are a form of emotional and mental abuse. Yeah, it's they're not really trying to offer you anything, right? They're trying to, in many ways, control you. They want you to hang on to their every word and move according to how they tell you that you make them feel. That's how some of these people will be.
Me who you are, don't.
And all the while telling you that they're this great, sweet guy that no woman has just come and take care, accepted and was feminine and fit and friendly and submissive for them. That's literally the stupid ass shit you'll hear some of these people say. Let's continue.
Don't tell me who you are.
It's like you gotta earn it over time. I want to make friends, and then I want them to be, 4 shots deep before they tell me some really moving experience they had. You gotta earn that with that with that 4th cocktail. You can't just like, I met you 4 minutes ago. Why do I know this much about what you really think about the world?
And that's really interesting, because I think if a story more connected to them, even if it's a first date or second date, you go, oh my God, they were so vulnerable with me. They shared their trauma. They shared this really deep story about their childhood and what they went through. It's actually probably a little bit of a red flag, so to speak, if somebody is oversharing that way very early on, because why is he feeling so comfortable to share with you, a perfect stranger, something incredibly personal about his?
That's the big one that I think a lot of people don't pay attention to, is the oversharing, right? A lot of women, I can only speak from a woman's perspective, so I'm not trying to pathologize women, but a lot of the times when somebody is vulnerable with us, especially a man, it can make you think like, oh, like I earned this vulnerability. Like there's something deep and powerful going on here. Like there's a deep connection. Otherwise, this person wouldn't be divulging to me these things about themselves that seem so sacred, right? And she talks about how, if it's just a lie, it's just a lie. And so you're taking it, deep and real. This person's just making up a lie to manipulate you. That's the thing. Northern Bell says, because they want to say all these things that you might like to respond to, but not ever let you and you have to hold in your thoughts and feelings. Yeah, absolutely. Let's continue.
You also have to go, who am I? I'm not special to them. We're on a date. We're on a first date. So if this is what they're doing with me, I have to assume on some level that this is not uncommon for them.
Right. And instead of telling ourselves, oh, he's being so vulnerable with me, he must really like me, you should actually it should be a red flag. Like, I just met this nigga 2 minutes ago. Why would he tell me all this shit about his childhood and his life? We just met each other. He shouldn't be divulging to me the deepest traumas that he's gone through or how people treated him. And, it's just too much, right? Maybe he's telling me this to have me put my guard down, right? Be vulnerable with him. And this isn't real. He just wanted to make me think that he valued me enough to tell me something so deep and personal, right? Don't be so quick to see it as love, right? Sometimes men will make you think they're being vulnerable so that you can jump out there and be vulnerable too. That's a little trick bag that some of these very, very manipulative bandits have.
That they get this vulnerable with people.
And I think the instinct is to feel special and to feel connected. And as a woman, we can be quite nurturing in the way that we are with perfect strangers, and we can just sort of go, oh, I feel really close to this person. I feel like I really helped them, and it was really healing to have this conversation with them, instead of actually looking at it for what it is, which is just probably too much information for date one.
Can I give another red flag?
Yeah, go on.
If you're being slightly vulnerable about something, or just being open with someone about something in your life, and I don't mean the kind of vulnerability, this sort of sickly, over the top vulnerability you're talking about, but just if you're just open and that person starts giving you advice, that is like one of my immediate red flags. Is if I didn't ask for advice, but based on some information, you're using this information that I just gave you as an opportunity to coach me or lecture me. Like that I find to be really, really a bad sign, because then this is all about you getting off on the sound of your own voice, you getting off on what you know, you trying to play a role where you've got it more together than me, so that represents a lack of vulnerability in you.
Exactly, Northern Bell. She says they tell you all about past trauma so they can start being abusive. So when they start being abusive, you will blame their trauma rather than them. Absolutely. And this is sort of like a way of priming you for the abuse. That's the term that you guys will hear a little bit later in my presentation as well, because I'm going to go into a lot of the grooming, right? Grooming isn't the best word, but the ways that somebody will prepare you for further more aggressive and maybe even violent types of abuse, all right? So that was a really good point that you made there about how they prepare you for the more abusive behaviors that are to come.
It's all, so I would say that as almost the kind of counterpoint to someone who weaponizes their vulnerability. It's almost someone who weaponizes your vulnerability.
If they jump on it, if they pounce on it to take on the coaching role, that is a good red flag.
Horrible, horrible, horrible. It's the opposite of connection.
Those guys in general that she's speaking about, I think, are just the kinds of guys who will very much.
And that is a sort of subtle way where someone will try to act like they're being like open and deep with you when they're really just critiquing you, right? You tell them something vulnerability, and they try to give you advice. That's literally proof that they're putting their guard up and they're not actually trying to level with you and be vulnerable too, right? They want to sort of take this moment that you've been vulnerable to then turn around and make themselves a teacher. That's the point that she makes here that I really like, and it stuck with me. That's why I remembered it before she got into it. They always want to be the one leading. They never want to be observing and learning. Sometimes you're going to have to observe and learn, but they never want to be that. They always want to be like, well, this is how you should be, or this is how a woman or man is. And it comes across a little bit weird. Let us get into it. She's going to speak a little bit about that.
Much speak in a way like they have all the answers. They have all of the understanding of themselves, of the situation, of how people are, of everything. And instead of kind of trying to assume the role of student, they're just constantly trying to be the teacher because they're high on their own voice.
It doesn't matter what someone says to you about who they are, or how exciting they appear to be in the beginning, or how much they have to actually watch what someone does.
Mm-hmm.
They can say they're kind, or they can keep repeating to you how kind they are, and then you can actually sort of watch them and go, oh, I don't actually see that in the way that they're treating people in this very room. They can keep talking about how generous they are, and yet you haven't been able to get a word in conversation. So their generosity absolutely does not show up in sharing the conversational stage with you. When we see these contradictions, it's actually important that we don't allow their charisma and the flowery language or the way they communicate, which might be very enjoyable, to mask that.
Like, this guy can seem massively attractive because he's got that masculine something.
Sorry, guys. This guy to me comes across like a little red pillish in his like, and again, I don't know what all their qualifications are and who all they are other than being like podcasters and things like that. I don't see like anything that calls them like clinicians or even like maybe they do some relationship stuff, but I don't know what their qualifications are. And so that makes me, let me open up there. I'm not doing free promo, guys. I just want you guys to see where the information is coming sometimes. That'll help clarify the message. So I'm going to share this screen too. So ghosting happens, but not to you. Learn the top 5 reasons he ghosts you so you can avoid it. This seems like to be like dating expert. Matthew, I love this man. He knows about dating. He will give you 7 words to say to a man, and you will have that man. He is no joke. All right, so we're sort of coming from the perspective of a relationship guru, and I don't know what his qualifications are, But he does come across a little red, like sort of like in his understanding to red pill. So let's get into it and just hear what he's going to say about this. That was just my little disclaimer.
And also that super sensitive, great communicator, in touch with his feelings side. And sometimes that can just be genuine, right? That can be a genuine, attractive, unique pairing. But there's just no shortcuts in relationships. So I think you just have to take your time with it and not be fooled.
And there's no, by the way, that's very true. And there's also no shortcuts when it comes to building character. You don't get to go to a yoga class and read a spiritual book and now have great character. You might talk the language. You might be wearing pants from Alo. You might, be carrying your yoga mat into the coffee shop. You might have all the right trappings or the kind of trim of someone who thinks in enlightened ways and use the language. I really want to honor myself. I really want to honor my truth. I really want to just live in integrity. You can say all of these phrases that become utterly devoid of meaning in the ways that they're used. It doesn't build character. Character takes time. Character, in fact, let me rephrase that, because character can only be revealed over time, but building character is something that is built through struggle. It's built through suffering. It's built through reaching places in our life of massive human.
And that's the thing, right? We have these people, these men, these women, whatever, F-boys, who they just want to automatically be regarded as these loving, caring, sweet men, right? They don't want to actually put in the work to have the character that they're toting, right? They want women to see them as the good guy, but what qualities do they actually have of a good guy, right? Are they intuitive? Do they listen to people? Are they friendly? A lot of times these will be detestable people who are just, they don't even have nice qualities. They're not even nice to women or men or whatever. They're just crappy people. And they they go around the world with this jaded perspective because they're not getting the women that they want. They're not accomplishing the things that they want. They'll say, well, I'm this great guy. I'm a great guy. I'm a great man. I have so much to offer. But internally, they're an F-boy, right? They're never being accountable for themselves. They're never really offering anything. Companionship, friendship, a romantic connection. They're really just sort of this crappy being who has a lot of entitlement. That's correct, EB. They're extremely entitled. They feel like they're owed a beautiful, gorgeous woman. They don't have to be, because mind you, they'll be like a 4. And when I say a 4, I'm being serious. Like, they're not even attractive. They're overweight, out of shape. And they'll be like, I want a bad beat. Or they'll be like a big old tubby, sloppy pot of mashed potatoes, and they'll be calling women obese and ugly and double chin and triple chin and all these things to try and make women feel like they're hideous. And they got 4 chins. They got a big back, and they're calling women who are overweight big back beats, right? It somehow it won't add up. And that's the contradiction with these guys. They want you to believe that they're this amazing, sweet guy, but they're sort of just like an underdeveloped asshole. There's no qualities in them that are actually desirable. They just believe that they are. They believe that they should be getting attractive, fertile, beautiful young women to fall at their knees for them. That's what they think. But they have no qualities that would make a beautiful, young, fertile, attractive woman fall to their knees, right? They're dusty, poor work ethic, they smell, they don't clean after themselves, they're not rich. They don't have the money for somebody else to clean up after them. They're actually expecting you to. But to them, they're a great guy. I'm a great guy. I'm a good guy. I have so much to offer the world. People just want to use me for my resources. They're broke. People just want to use me. That'll be their perspective, though. Miss Jennings is right. Yeah. And the more you pay attention to them, the more you're like, okay, I see what's going on here with you.
Humility of having gone through something and been, had the rug pulled out from underneath us, of losing the things that we relied on for our confidence, of life not being the way that we thought it was, or not panning out the way we thought it would, or just going through things that make us take a step back and go, oof, life is tough. And whoa, this gives me an insight into how tough it is for other people. And when you realize how tough it is for other people, that doesn't make you go, let me talk about myself all the time. It makes me go, let me go and find out more about other people. Let me go and connect with other people. Because it's one of the, I'm a big believer in therapy, but there's nothing worse than someone who does therapy and comes out and all they ever do is talk about their therapy. Because it's somehow one of the side effects for some people can be that it just everything in life becomes about how, that they get addicted to their narrative, their story, and how interesting it is and why they are the way they are. And they forget that other people in the world exist. And they can tell a very interesting story about themselves, but it doesn't have any of the humility of I'm 1 in 7 billion and that other people have stories and let me connect with theirs.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've even seen on dating apps women who have specified not interested in a guy if he hasn't done therapy. And I always think that's an interesting one because it's like, I understand the intention of what that person's saying is very dogmatic though. And also it suggests that because you've done that, you have got a tick and you've got the language and you've diagnosed yourself, so you're going to be a superior partner. But who's to say your therapy has necessarily helped you? And B, so what? Like, oh, I've gone to therapy, I've been to a spiritual retreat, I've done yoga. It might be nice if you have an interest in those things, but it doesn't actually.
Right. That's why what they say and how they treat you, their behaviors, is way more important. Sorry, that how they treat you and the actions that they show you in your life is more important than what they say. They can tell you all up and down, I have integrity, I'm a family man, I'm a man of my word. But if all they do is lie to you, treat you poorly, break promises, there's your answer. You don't have to ask them again, right? They're clearly not capable of being honest and saying, hey, I'm a piece of shit, right? They're going to tell you, they're going to sell you, hey, I'm a good guy, I take care of mine. So you never see them take care of their own or do what is needed so that people can have what they need. You always see them slacking, being lazy, finding excuses, finding a way out. When you hear them say, hey, I'm a protector, I'm a provider, I'm going to take care of you, you almost blot it out. You know it's not a real thing. You know they're not really reliable. You know they're really not going to take care of you. They're actually extremely self-centered. They only care about their own goals. That's that's your answer. They shouldn't have to tell you, hey, I have integrity. You should see that in how they treat you and how they treat others. Do they treat you and others with integrity? Or are they cutting corners? Are they evil and mean? Do they lie a lot? That's your answer, not what they say or what they want you to believe.
Tell you anything about the qualities of that person.
Well, what that person is saying when they say, I want someone who's been to therapy, or I'm not interested in someone who hasn't done therapy, is that they really value self-awareness.
And a desire to grow.
And I get why he's saying that person would be a target, right? Because that person would look at a dating profile of somebody who says, been to therapy, healed all my child wounds, yada, yada, yada. But then you meet them and they don't act like they've been to therapy, right? They have poor habits. They're not self-aware. They don't treat you nicely, and the excuse is always what they went through and what they struggled through. You putting that on your profile might have even attracted somebody like that. Or you saying you want someone who puts that, that would actually cause some men to go on these dating websites and say, I've been to therapy, healed my blah 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 wound, da 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 da. Or they'll say, been to therapy, in therapy, working through my demons. Northern Bell says, right, would never believe what a person says, believe what they do. Exactly. But these people will try to use the power of persuasion. They'll just want you to believe what they're saying. So never mind that they never show up for you. Never mind they're not consistent. They don't treat you well. They're not considerate of you. The fact that they say that they're considerate, good, loving men, that's enough. That's enough, right? You should believe them when they say that. Not believe them when they do it. Let's continue.
Grow and be a better person.
Right. Well, yes, I
And
would
I tried
argue that the two things don't necessarily go hand in hand. You can be self-aware, but not have a desire to grow. Or you can also be self-aware, have a desire to grow, but ultimately just constantly give in to your worst kind of side.
See, that's a good point, right? You could be self-aware, but not have a desire to grow, right? So you could know what's wrong with you. You could know that you're rude, inconsiderate, lazy, unmotivated. You could know all of that and just not make any effort to change or be better. One woman's F-boy is another woman's great guy. Well, the difference between the two is how they each behave. Right, with that first woman, he definitely, if she thinks he's an F-boy, it's because he treated her like that. And the woman who thinks he's great, it's because she's only gotten great treatment. So, I mean, you could say that, but if he only treats you like an F-boy and then decides to treat the next woman correctly, that was that guy choosing. He has complete control over his own behavior. And they can't tell you, oh, a woman will get a woman will get a respectful, sweet, open guy from me. No, that should just be who you are. If you're sweet, respectful, and open, then you're never going to be that rude, evil, mean, violent person. Nobody can make you be that way if it's not already in you. If that's not ingrained into part of who you are. You can't judge two different relationships. Right. No such thing as a universal great guy. But what I'm saying there is the difference is in how the man chooses to behave. The woman who sees him as an F-boy is because he treated her like an F-boy. The woman who sees him as a great guy would equate to a man who's a good guy. And so, of course, she's going to see him and call him a good guy. Exactly. If that's the case, the behavior change on someone's part, a lot of the times it'll be the man. They'll say, oh, I couldn't be a good guy to her. She was boring or she didn't excite me. And so I just treated her like yada, yada. No, the accountable man would say, I didn't value her. I didn't treat her right. And so in my next relationship, I decided to value a woman, treat her right, show her with my actions that I respect and care about her. But a lot of times these guys won't be willing to be honest and say, hey, I might have been an F-boy to you, but to this next woman, I healed all the feelings that I had negative towards a woman, or, I healed the wound of previously being cheated on before, and I didn't take that out on you, or I didn't take that out on her. They won't admit that. That's the thing. But then they'll go to another woman and be better. They want you to believe, hey, well, maybe it was something you did. You couldn't get a good guy out of me. Imagine that. I was an asshole because you couldn't get a good guy out of me. You inspired me to be an asshole. It's a lack of accountability. They don't want to be real and say, like, I was an F-boy to her. And I had to learn to be better to a woman because I wanted one to stay with me. right? They won't. A lot of them won't be capable of saying that. Let's continue.
There are people who have been in therapy for 3 decades who are not any improved.
Well, the improvement takes work, and therapy is one form of work. But you have to actually be willing to do the things that make you a better person, and self-awareness alone won't make you do those things.
Therapy needs to meet character, because
100%.
character is the ability to do hard shit, even when you don't want to do it, even when it's very much the resistant road, and you're not going to get your favorite outcome as a result of it, but you are living your value by doing it. That is what character, that's how it's built over time, right? And so the reason therapy alone with a lack of character just is pointless. It's a pointless exercise.
What's the show we've been watching on Netflix? Dahmer?
Dahmer, yeah.
What was his name? Jeffrey Dahmer, the
Jeffrey
serial
Dahmer.
killer.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer.
I mean, when you watch him in a jail,
That show,
when you
my
watch him
God.
in a jail cell and he's talking about what he's done, he seems fairly self-aware.
Yeah, he even
wouldn't-
thinks he's a monster. You feel almost sorry for him, don't you?
But because he's sort of, there's a self-awareness to it. But it's not, I wouldn't want to go back to his house for a beer just because he's self-aware.
You still have to apparently swipe right on that
Right.
profile, because
Yeah.
he'd be like, oh yeah, done loads of therapy. Steve, what I find I think you and I are probably in agreement on this, but what I find so cringe about that therapy signaling on the profile is just that's automatically putting yourself on the pedestal. It's like, unless you've gone to therapy and you can speak my therapy language. So I think that's the troublesome problem there. It's just the signaling element of
Yeah,
that.
I've got friends who have never done a session of therapy in their lives who I think would probably make better partners than some people I know who do a lot of therapy.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, yeah, it's like you can learn all the language and you go, well, these are my bag of issues though. But it's like, well, yeah, but have you worked on them? Is it working?
All right, so I think I pretty much landed in my plane with that conversation, right? These will be the types who want you to believe that they're a great guy, but in reality, they're not, right? They're just, it's sort of, in some ways, it's kind of gaslighting. Kuma says, I get what you mean, but someone may think a guy that treats her so great is a lame or boring. That's, again, like, that's so specific, right? When the general conversation is that some guys who tell themselves they're great guys, they're really not. They're not. I mean, it's a way of sort of like fooling themselves and blaming other people for why they're not, attractive, why somebody wouldn't want to be with them, right? Or why they have traits that causes their relationships to end frequently. I don't know what else to say it. All right, let me play the next video in my roulette. And this one is going to be from a very handsome content creator. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I liked how he spoke about it, right? And I think, like, sometimes people will hear a guy like him and be like, oh, Derek Jackson, like, just sort of saying what women want to hear. You know how the bandits would say that. But I think he gives a pretty good, like, he sort of like speaks another language to some people about like these tactics that men will do to women, and that's just the context here. These tactics that men will do to women to get them to accept deeper, more aggressive forms of abuse. Right? It's sort of like a priming that they do. Grooming, I think, is like when people hear that, they're gonna think like child or whatever. But I think priming, like preparing people for worse behavior to come, lowering their expectations or even lowering their self-esteem so that they'll accept lower forms of behaviors. I think that's what all this fits under. So let's get started.
I've seen people make excuses for the man that's hitting them. She had convinced herself that she was the only one that was able to get him to lose his temper like that. Yesterday, I put out a video where I talked about the lady from St. Pete who was killed by her child's father, and then her child's father actually killed the child. And I really mainly just wanted to warn women about these kind of men, you know, try to warn them about staying away from men that are you know, easy to snap, you know, make sure you take your time to get to know men before you get in too deep, you know, and I talked about just abuse in general because there are some other instances that I talked about in that video, and all of them had an element of domestic violence or abuse at the hands of either uh like the one story I talked about, it was a woman that killed her husband, and then it was the one story that I just talked about, and then it was another where a guy beat his baby mama up at work at her job, and then basically went on a chase with the police, and he ended up killing their daughter that they had. So, you know, like I said, I hate for these type of situations to happen. So that was the reason why I talked about that. And then in that video, I said that.
And you know, it's interesting how much pushback some people will get, men or women, when they're trying to raise awareness, right, for the types of abusive men who can cause the deletion, the premeditated deletion, or deletion of children and young girls. That a lot of times men will get defensive, or they'll say like, "Why are you trying to put in women's head that men are abusive?" As if cases like this don't happen all the time. Now, I don't know the story that he's referencing himself, but there are so many stories of women who deal with men that have a lot of the traits that he's going to mention today. And people will just kind of shake that off as like, oh, well, you know, that's just the guy, or, you know, men can be like that some ways, not realizing that it can actually, hey, it can actually directly correlate to more impulsive, aggressive behaviors in the future. Right, and it's sort of like a sign that that person is going to eventually gradually become more abusive and aggressive. So let's get into it. He has some really good signs here in this one.
If you are in a situation where you're being abused or anything like that, then you just need to leave. And I've been seeing in the comments where people have been saying that it's not that easy. You know, if you've never been abused, then you don't know how it feels because the person ends up basically grooming you into a person that will take the abuse, and then they'll scare you into leaving. And I get that. I understand that. In that same video, I talked about something that my mom went through in the past. And I saw her go through all those different emotions. You know, I've seen other relationships that were toxic or abusive, and I know that it's not the easiest thing to just walk away from. A lot of people don't even realize that they're being abused. It's crazy as that sounds. You can be getting hit, and you'll make it. I've seen people make excuses for the man that's hitting them. You know, I've actually saw a woman like in real life.
So I don't want to stick too much on the anecdotal when it comes to that part, but I'm going to switch over to this really quickly, where we talked about manipulation. Oh, if you don't stop, I'm going to slap you upside your head. He's so annoying. He always wants to play like at the wrong time. I'm sorry, guys. But in here, when he talks about manipulation, he talks about psychological impact, right? That was the term that was used here where, sorry, I want to go up to where we first talked about the influence of somebody. So in psychological dictionaries, influence during interaction is used as an individual is changing the behavior of another another person, as well as his and her attitudes, intentions, ideas as a result of the person's activity. Right? So this is where they're literally, stop it! I'm not playing. I'm trying to do a show. Mr. Whisker Face. Um, sorry guys. He's literally over here jumping towards my hand. Stop. That's my fault for egging you on. That's my fault for egging you on. Sorry. Playing with cat. So he's so annoying. But yes, right. So this is where the interaction that it's not always bad. We determine that influence is, but the interaction is meant to change how you see things, your attitudes, your belief systems, right? And so when we apply it to stop. When we apply it to a bad level of manipulation, where the person is trying to get something out of you or use you or in whatever way, right? We can see how that change that they can cause in you can be harmful, right? If they're trying to get your self-esteem to be lowered, right? They can do that by manipulating you. They can manipulate you into believing that you're unattractive, that you're not worth nothing, that you're you have to settle for them, that they're the best that you can do, and all of that. Right? That's sort of what we're talking about here when we talk about manipulation and sort of you need to stop. I know you're a kitten, but you gotta stop. Stop. You guys see this little bandit? Stop it. Okay, he went away. He's like, all right, I'm not going to keep ruining your show. But yes, it's literally them trying to influence you in a negative way so that you'll accept more aggressive, poor behavior from them for a longer period of time. Or maybe they're trying to get you from somebody who would get angry and cuss them out for being disrespectful and abusive to you, to somebody who will just drop their head and just let them tear you apart, right? That's as simple as it can be. He is playful. He's a little kitten. You guys see, he went up to me. He was like, I'm like, all right. And you can hear his little jingling thing. I think he likes the sound of it. I put that collar on him. He's 9 months old. 9 months. He's a little baby. But I put that collar on him. And ever since, he want to be coming around, jumping everywhere so he can hear. Now he just want to be knocking shit over. Okay. Too much attention. All right, let's continue the show. I can't stand when he starts acting up just to act up. But yeah, he's a little playful and he likes to jump around. But that's essentially what they're doing. So let's hear. He's going to get into some pretty good signs. It sounds like he's just going to be on a soliloquy or whatever, but he's actually going to get into some signs, some behaviors that you can be worried about if you see them pop up in a man, right? If he starts acting like this, there could be worse things to come. Right? He could start acting worse.
She was bragging about the fact that her kid's dad would hit her.
Hey.
And she took it as he really loved her. She had convinced herself that he loved her so much that she was the only one that was able to get him to lose his temper like that. So she almost took it as a badge of honor. As crazy as it sounds, I know people that, have been manipulated into these situations. And I know that it's not easy to get out of. But that's the reason why it's important for people to make videos like this to shine a light on this type of situation. So with this video, what I want to do is I want to give y'all some signs to look for. If you're in a relationship, you could be being manipulated and you don't even realize it. So what I want to do, like I said, is I want to give you some signs, and I want to kind of equip you and give you some things to look for so you can investigate deeper. And also, if you see these signs, pump your brakes and really get to the root of those problems before you go any further. So let me go ahead and get into it. Before I tell you the signs, I just want to tell you this, what I've noticed about abusive people in general. Because I know this video is about how to, like, signs that you're being groomed by an abusive man. There's also men that are being groomed by abusive women. The abuse, it often looks different, but it's still abuse. Men go through abuse as well. Just because a man is a man and we on average are bigger than a woman and stuff like that, we think like a woman can't hurt us or whatever the case may be. But I just told a story about a man that was killed on Facebook Live by his wife, you know, and it was a bad situation to be in. You can tell. Noticed about abusive people is that their method is to build you up and then tear you down systematically. What they want to do, what they're trying to accomplish, is gaining control of your emotions. They want you to think that your happiness comes from them. And the evidence that they look for is whether or not they can control you being happy or sad. It's all about control. Abusers need to be in control. So in the beginning of a relationship, and this is why I say for all people, what you must do is learn to love yourself. Self-exploration is a must if you even thinking about getting in a relationship. Because if you have some insecurities, you have some mental problems, some emotional problems that you're dealing with, some struggles, you need to heal. Because an opportunistic person will sniff those things out and they will use them against you.
And that's the biggest point that's to be made with why you have to be healed and loving yourself. Oh, thank you so much, Nyla. She says, Shiba dog wearing samurai armor riding you're amazing in the air with sparklers. Oh, that's a sticker. Okay, I'm over here reading it like it's just a word. Hold on. I could probably see it on my phone. Sorry. Thank you so much for the super chat. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for that. It's greatly appreciated. I thought it said something at first. It says, "You're amazing." Thank you. Thank you so much. But you know, I really like the point that he's making here. I'm just going to rewind it a little bit.
To heal. Because an opportunistic person will sniff those things out and they will use them against you. If you're somebody that struggles with loving yourself and you don't have confidence in yourself, guess what the man can do? Come to you like a knight in shining armor, telling you all of the things that you need to hear. If you don't love yourself, you struggle with love, what is he going to tell you? What is he going to pretend to show you? That he loves you. And they can tell very quickly whether or not you have issues with self-love. If you're insecure, the way you...
And I can't remember if it's in this video or the next video where they talk about the information gathering stage, right? Where they're literally just going to try and pick up on all your tics, right? They want to know if you love yourself, if you respect yourself, if you have boundaries, if you have expectations for a man when you're in a relationship, right? And so if they feel any level of insecurity, they're literally going to bite, right? They're going to take that insecurity fine. They're going to use that to manipulate you. They're literally going to collect facts about you, not because they care, not because they're actually appreciating your vulnerability, respecting you and loving you in a reciprocal way. No, it's so that they can find a way, so that they can use it later on to manipulate you so that they can accomplish what they want from you. So if they feel like, you know, they can get some service or benefit out of you, then they're gonna want to know a lot of things about you, and they might like even make you believe that they care about you, like you, want to know these things, right? That it's not just a way of keeping track of how to manipulate you later. They might try to make you believe that they actually do have some genuine interest in you. And that's the unfortunate thing here. Thank you again, Nyla. Thanks for being here. Let me continue with this video. He has some really, really good tips for women so that they can start to understand how men start to prime you to become more abusive down the line.
You carry yourself, the way you talk, you know what I'm saying? All of those things play a part in letting a person know what you think about yourself. And a lot of it ain't even verbal. A lot of it is nonverbal. You know what I'm saying? But these people can pick up on those things. And like I said, use it against you. So if you're in a new relationship and fairly quickly, you start hearing your man tell you, I don't know what I would do without you. If you start hearing a man tell you things like, if I was to lose you, I don't know what I would probably go crazy. If a man tell you anything where he's talking about harming you, and he might be smiling when he said, you might think it's cute, you might not think he's serious. I seen a man tell a woman, you got to die out of this like the mob. You got to die out of this relationship just like the mob. And inside, and you can look at her when the dude say that, and she thinking to herself, oh my God, he really loved me. That's not love.
And trust me, some people do actually have those poor beliefs, right? They might have even been conditioned to believe that based on the relationships that they saw in their household. But somebody who loves you wouldn't want to harm you in any way, shape, or form. Like that's, you know, it's not love because they're possessive of you and they want you to be around them 24/7. Like he talked about, like, I don't know what I would do without you. You've been surviving all however many years of your life. Like you shouldn't be trying to tell me that you can't live without me. You've been living without me for a very long time, right? I should be something you want, just an addition, right? I shouldn't be the reason why you wake up. Like, you know, I mean, like in some ways you hear the romanticism in it, and you're like, I'm the reason you wake up. Like, no, you should want to wake up so you live. You should have goals and aspirations in your life. I shouldn't be the only reason why you wake up or why you go to work. You know, there's just, it can sound romantic, and I'm going to blame TV. I'm going to blame the media for that. But there's really nothing romantic about a man trying to make you feel responsible for their lives, for themselves, for how, you know, something as simple as waking up and having goals and aspirations and things like that.
Why I gotta threaten you to stay with me? I gotta threaten you to make you stay with me, whether it look like I'm playing or not. You know, and I understand some couples, they play. You know, you play, fight, all those things. You know, I play with my wife sometimes. You know what I'm saying? We play with each other, but I've never told my wife anything like that. You know, you leave me, you gonna die in it. No, that stuff you don't play about. You know what I'm saying? So they want to make you feel like they can't live without you. They ain't going nowhere. You ain't got to worry about it. They gonna always be with you. And you know what I'm saying? They gonna make it seem like they're gonna be faithful. They gonna make you think that they love you so much that they would never cheat on you. They would never do you wrong. But with an abusive person, it's all an act. With a narcissistic person, it's all an act. When you see somebody, I tell you this one, I done seen a lot of this, right? Tattooing a person's name. If a person is trying to get you to tattoo their name on you, that's a sign that they're trying to brand you. They're trying to let it be known that you belong to them.
You know, funny, like I remember being like a teenager in high school, and there was those like strangely attached couples where like they would get like a lip tattoo on their neck, or you would see like a name, like they would have the woman's name in a very like obvious place. She would have a name or a date somewhere, like, and people thought those were like goals, like, oh my god, they love each other so much. But there actually was like a lot of manipulation and like they'll literally try to like, I've heard sometimes the person saying like, I don't want to be with you anymore if you don't get this tattoo with my name. Like if we don't get matching love tattoos, then you don't really love me. If you don't tattoo my name, my name on your neck with some lips, then you don't really love me. Like it's manipulative. You can see it from both sides. But it's a way to try and brand the person, woman and man who do it. It's really, the tattoo one is a big one that I used to see a lot, and I used to hear girls all the time like, "Oh, that's so cute. I want matching tattoos with my man." No, because realistically, that relationship could end any day. Like you guys can grow apart and move on. Now you have this person's name on your neck. Like, were they ever? So they just believe for the rest of your life that you belong to them. Like there's no ability for you guys to leave you again when you blame the media. But you really, like, no one really wants to be in a situation where, like, in order for their partner to feel like you love them, that you have to brand yourself. You have to give them possession of you, or let them influence you, how you move, how you dress, how you wear your hair. One that you see in the bandit sphere. A lot of the time, these men will say, "We want women who don't wear makeup and natural hair." You know the person who comes to my mind when I think about this? You know the person who comes to my mind when I think about that is all those girls from the Nature Boy cult, first of all. You see them all there with their natural hair. They're wearing those outfits. They're wearing the traditional clothes and all that stuff. And they're literally trying to appease this man or this not political, religious figure who tells them, like, you know, this is how you come to me. This is how you present yourself to me. Be your whole self, right? They'll try to encourage the women of that cult to not do the regular things that women do. I mean, they had weird things where they didn't want them to take a bath or wash their butt or anything. They didn't believe in soap. It's a tactic and a way to control the person. But let's continue.
Their name is on you forever. You know, I've seen people make these grand gestures of going to get their spouse's name tattooed on them. I'm gonna tell you this: that's a form of manipulation. You can be with a guy, and then he show up with your name tattooed on him. He want to make you. He willing to go to that extent to make you feel like he love you. Oh my God, he tatted my name on his chest. He really loved me, girl. He ain't never going nowhere. I got him whooped. Next thing you know, some months later, you getting whooped physically. The average healthy-minded person ain't walking around thinking about tattooing somebody's name on them. You know, your body's a temple. Your body belongs to God. So why would you go and stamp somebody else's name on it? Because essentially what you're saying is God don't own your body. That person whose name is on your body is who own your body.
Now, I'm not religious, right? Obviously, a lot of us grew up Christian and things like that. But I do think this one makes a good point, right? Like, we are a product of our creator, right? Our body's a temple. We got to treat it with respect. We're putting the man's name on it. We're literally saying, like, I was created, I belong to you. I'm a creation of yours. Right? That's the weird thing about putting names. Like, I understand people putting their children's names or things like that, because that's your kid. You blood. You birthed that child, or you helped to create the child, or whatever. But a partner, it doesn't seem to make sense, right? Because relationships are so finite. At any time, your relationship could end. Yeah, you can possibly come back to each other. You could end up together again, but You could also end up never being together again. And why would they want you to have your name on their body? You know what I mean? Like, it's so weird that sometimes people will use this as like a, hey, this is a commitment. Like, if you want to be with me, prove that you love me, put my name on your neck, right? Maybe they're insecure about that man being a cheater. Or maybe they've been cheated on before, and so the only way that they believe a man will be proud of and not cheat on them is by putting a tattoo on their neck and saying, hey, I am. You are mine. I own you. So you're putting my name on your neck. When you go out, if you're around other women, they're going to see my name on your neck. That's a woman's way of being toxic. Same with the men. He'll be like, oh, I'm going to get your name tattooed, get my name tattooed. Little do you know, they do this with every relationship. They've removed so many tattoos. But to you, you're thinking like, wow, they took this crazy step with me because they love me or they care about me. No. No. There's usually a deeper reason why they're wanting you to, put their name on you. I personally would never, but
Why would you put that message out there? If you're willing to go to that extent, that says a lot. So if you a woman and you got a man, or you a man and you got somebody trying to pressure you to tag their name, if you got to do all that to prove that you love them, go about your business. You don't got to do those kind of things to show somebody that you love them. And then I'm gonna tell you this: to a lot of people, that junk don't mean nothing, no way. I remember a long time ago, I was with this girl, and we ended up breaking up. And while we was broke up, her sister ended up calling me while they was at a tattoo shop, telling me, "Shoemate, my sister tattooing your name." What? I don't believe that. We wasn't even talking at the time. Sure enough, this girl went and tattooed my name real big on her back. What did I think? Oh my God, she really loved me. She really loved me. Man, when I tell you this girl was the biggest liar I ever met in my life, she lied about everything. She can tell, she'll lie about the weather. She'll lie about everything, bro. It don't matter. Everything that you can lie about, she'll lie about it. So tattooing somebody's name to a person like that don't even mean nothing.
and that's the other side of it sometimes, right? They'll want you to make this big old commitment, or they'll want this to be the big grand gesture that makes you think that they're all for you, they love you, they want you. On the back end, they're being a cheater, they're being infidelis, right? They're entertaining other people and things like that. While in your head, right, in your little puny brain, who was manipulated by them. I'm not saying you really have a puny brain, but I'm just saying, in your head, you think, wow, he wanted to get these tattoos early in the relationship. He must love me. He must be so invested in this relationship, right? That's why he got this tattoo. And they'll do it right in the beginning to make you think like, wow, this is such a deep, loving relationship. And it'll be just to cover up the fact that they're a liar, cheater. They can't be trusted. It's a cover up. It's literally a way to cover up the fact that they're actually really not a good person. I'm really into you when they're not. They just want you to believe that. So you will be exclusive to them. And you'll stop entertaining other people. You'll, in some ways cut off parts of your life. Maybe you won't go out as much because you think, oh, well, this is, you'll think that's the person you're with. And they'll be going out every weekend. They'll tell you they're working, but they're going to the club, getting drunk, and hanging out with whores or whoever it is. So let's continue.
Another thing, I've seen a lot of situations, and you see it in movies too, where you can be with a person, right? You can be with a man, right? And all of a sudden, he started trying to rush you to have his baby. I want you to have my baby. all that is a way to lock in with you, to make it where you can't get away. Which they have to have some kind of way to really dig their claws into you.
And that's all it's about. It's about digging claws in you, right? They understand that if you have a child with them, it's more than just about you two and you tolerating bad behavior, right? Now you have to decide, you want this child to have the parent in their life, right? You want the child to be, for example, if you have the value of raising your child in a two-parent household, do you really want to rob your child of that experience? Right? You'll be more hesitant to leave them, especially if they can do that thing where they turn it off and turn it on, or make you walk on eggshells. That's usually what women do. I would say that it's both genders. And I've been trying to make sure that I keep the conversation neutral. But you'll see this a lot. You'll see a lot of men, when all else fails, right? They're not able to get in your head. They're not able to break your self-esteem down. They're going to be very preoccupied with impregnating you. Maybe they'll pressure you to have sex without condoms. Or maybe they'll tell you, hey, let's try for a baby. Right? All other aspects of the relationship aren't progressing naturally like they're supposed to. But they have this fixation on you having a child with them. Because they truly feel like you will have to make decisions that force you to be with them. They truly believe, okay, you have a kid with me, that's different. We have to raise this child. You're going to deprave your child of a father. You're going to be a single parent, or you're going to make me co-parent with you so that the child won't have me and you together in the home like you dreamed of. That's how they'll play. Listen to me.
Otherwise, you can just leave. If they can't beat you down, if they can't break you mentally enough, what they'll do is they'll try to hurry up and rush and attach themselves to you, so they'll get you pregnant. I saw a lady commenting on a video a couple weeks back how her and her boyfriend bought a house together. They bought a car together, but he won't marry her. Why would you be willing to buy a house with a person or have a baby with a person, but not get married? Because I want to be able to walk away from you when I feel like walking away. If I marry you, then I might not be able to get away when I feel like it. You know what I'm saying? It's all kind of games.
Play that back real quick because I want to highlight that point.
A baby with a person, but not get married. Because I want to be able to walk away from you when I feel like walking away. If I marry you, then I might not be able to get away when I feel like it. You know what I'm saying? It's all kind of games being played. They have to lock you in. Because like I said earlier, the game is build you up to tear you down. And in the building up phase, it's fun for you. You having a good time. You feeling good. You think this person love you. You fall in love with them. But they're preparing you for the breakdown. And they have to lock in with you. They have to dig their claws in you before they begin to break you down. You know? Because after they done made you feel like you're on this pedestal, right? One day out of the blue, he started making comments about your appearance. Start talking about you in ways where it hurt your feelings. He been making you feel like he was in so much love all this time. Now all of a sudden he telling you fat. Now all of a sudden he don't like your hair. Now all of a sudden he's gaslighting you. He telling you you don't know how to be a good woman. You know what I'm saying? He telling you that you're disrespectful. He's telling you that you don't love him. He's telling you all these things. But you know deep down in your heart, you're going out of your way to respect this man. You're going out of your way to show this man that you love him. You do everything that you can possibly think of to show this person that you love them. But they'll tell you, man, you don't do nothing for me. I'm unhappy. I don't feel like you care. You know what I'm saying? All these things. You're not willing to give me sex as much as I want it.
It's literally the buildup, right? It's like a balloon right there, inflating you up, inflating your head up, blowing your head up, making you feel so love bombed, so seen. Maybe the sex is great. Maybe they're even exhibiting qualities that are going to start to fade and fade very quickly. They might have you wrapped around their tiny finger and not like a dummy, but they might actually have spent this years to be loved, right? Because really what they do is study you to know what it is that you want and what you need. And they'll mimic that. They blow you up like a balloon. And then they're gonna pop that shit so quickly. They put all this into you to really make you think, right? That's what love bombing really feels like, right? They make you believe that you're in love, that they see you, that they see you for who you are. They accept you. They love you. They're so admirable of you. Like they admire you. They admire you. And they're doing all this just so they can pop your balloon, right? And start telling you, actually, like, I think you should stop eating donuts. Like, in a little bit, you're going to get ugly and obese, right? I really don't like how you dress. I feel like you dress ugly. I don't like it anymore. Before, they used to talk about how much they loved your style and how unique you were, right? But now they're telling you they don't like your style. You need to fix that. You need to do something different. It's their way of literally putting those blocks together, bringing you all the way up to the tippity top, and then shooting you all the way down. It's a way to control how you feel. Literally. They know what they're doing because they put the good in you. They know how to pretend and considerate and loving and all of that. They expressive even. But they did all of that just so that they can then turn around and humble you and make you get on your knees now. Now you got to get on your knees. That's their process.
Don't get me wrong. Some relationships, that's a legitimate complaint. But if you know you breaking that man off on the regular, and then he'll come and tell you that you're not, it's like y'all live in two different realities. And that's a way that the breakdown began. Another thing is this. As I said earlier, I've seen instances where a woman was getting hit and she actually thought that it was a badge of honor. The man started hitting you after he done already started breaking you down. He might grab you. Anything physical. Don't stand for that. Your man shouldn't be putting his hands on you. I'm not
Pretty much what he goes into there is like somebody who loves you isn't going to put their hands on you. They're not going to degrade you. They're not going to use your insecurities against you. Somebody who loves you isn't going to do that. All right. But somebody who's trying to groom you for abuse might. All right. So this is going to be the next video that she sort of talks about this. And it's funny that they're both religious. Hold on. Sorry. It's funny that they're both religious people who have these perspectives. As you heard, he talked about God a little bit, or maybe even quite a bit in his video, and she talks about it a little bit, but I think her insights on being groomed by abusive men, specific things that they do.
So I've been wanting to do this video for a while now about grooming, just because I feel like in today's society, I meet a lot of people who don't even really know what that term means, even when I explain it to them, it's kind of like a complex concept, and it's been hard for me to explain to people. I mean, the basic gist of it is that you have someone who wants to get something from someone else. But when I was younger, I thought that grooming only happened to like younger kids for sexual reasons from predators. It wasn't until I was older that I realized that it could happen to anyone of any age for any reason from someone who's predatory and manipulative. And I was driving around the other day, and this analogy just kind of like popped into my head, and I felt like it really worked. And the more that I kind of fleshed it out, the more that I felt like it really worked to kind of explain grooming, not just to people, but like to kids, because I feel like this is so, if people can understand this, it can really help them not walk around paranoid and full of fear, but just to really reassess them and how they're interacting with people in the world around them. Let's say that you have an orange and I'm someone who wants that orange from you. What would be the best way for me to get that orange from you? I could threaten you. I could literally just ask you for the orange. I could use violence. I could yell at you. But really the best way for me to get your orange from you is for me to manipulate you, for me to act like I'm your friend. And really in this situation, if everybody has an orange of some kind, I'm gonna look for people who don't know the value of their orange. Because if you don't know the value of your orange, you're more likely to not only give it to me, but to give it to me for free. You're probably not gonna put up a lot of fight about it, because you're not even gonna understand that what you're giving me is valuable. Because that's not saying doubt everybody who's nice to you. It's not that. But familial system or whatever that doesn't encourage us to know our value, to love ourselves, to know who we are. I mean, another way that I could get an orange from you is I could tell you lots of stories about people who have also given up their oranges for free, so that this concept becomes very normalized to you. Another way that I could get your orange from you is to convince you that I really love you and I really care about you, and I'm asking you to give me your orange because it's in your best interest. More than anything, I think people run into grooming a lot in terms of romantic relationships and for sexual purposes. That is the most common reason why it happens. But there's, business situations where people can be groomed. I know one person, he was a photographer and he had an apprentice, and this intern learned all of his photography skills, tricks, got to know all of his clients with him, and then essentially stole his business from him, So you really have to realize that just yelling at someone, there's a whole genre of person walking around who knows and is very intelligent and realizes that the best way to get something from someone is to pretend to care about them, gain their trust, earn their trust, and have all these different tactics to normalize the taking of the orange.
All right, sorry, I'm me pausing it at the most strange parts is because people have strange ways of speaking. It's just their body language and stuff. She oscillates a lot. But she made a really good point there, right? It's right where a man or an employee will get to know the business, will be super in tune and attuned to the people in the business, to the customers, does a really good job. But they were doing all of that so that they can learn the skills to take their employees, right? So even though it appeared to benefit the person, in the end, it benefited the manipulator or the manipulative person to treat everyone that way, to treat them nicely, to make them think that he was hearing and seeing them, right? So it's literally, there's so many ways to be an adult and be being groomed. But let me continue here.
Make it as unnoticeable as possible so that the person doesn't even realize. Really, what I think at the end of my relationship, because I didn't value myself at all, I didn't value any of my metaphorical oranges, I didn't realize that I had anything to give. At the end of several of these relationships that I had with people, it felt like I looked up and I felt so empty and like I had so much pain inside, and it was because how much I had given away at the time because I didn't value any of it. And so I kept giving and giving and giving. And then by the end of it, when they discarded me, I looked around and I wondered why my life felt emptier and why I was hurting so much. And it's because I had lost so much without even realizing what I had lost. And I think that really shows the value of the things that we're giving away more than anything is from the pain that it causes. You have tells. And so if you are aware of the fact that this is an issue going on, not just with kids, but with adults in general, you know, I would almost say that, like, for me, the biggest tell that I've noticed with them is not so much behavior characteristics, although those are a thing as well. It's more so because, again, I didn't value myself. I didn't have confidence in myself. And so saying no was like a really hard thing for me. And if someone made me doubt the validity of my no, I was more prone to believing that maybe I was wrong. So I just wanted to go in really quick to how to deal with that sort of dynamic, which is a really huge dynamic in these relationships if these people are predatory. If they're predatory, the whole cycle of the relationship tends to revolve around this boundary testing and this idea of you saying no and then them making you
Listen, these type of men, or these type of partners, and I can only speak from my experiences as a woman, these type of partners will literally try to make you feel like you should just accept anything from them. Your boundaries are too much. Your boundaries are what's causing the issues, right? The fact that you have an issue with what it is that they're trying to get off on you, right? You're the issue. You're the problem. They will constantly be trying to put you through things and claim that it's a test. They want to know if you really love them, if you really care about them. That's what some of these people will do. It will be a constant fear, a constant thing that you're going through, ups and downs of trying to deal with this person over and over again, crossing your boundaries, not respecting your wishes, not caring about what they do makes you feel, and expecting that you'll accept and forgive anything that they do. That's how these people generally move. All right. So we're getting a little late into the stream. We're about 3 hours, 17 minutes into the stream, and I'm actually getting a little fatigued. It's about 10:30. I know everyone's up for the banditry, but these subjects tend to kind of weigh on me because I feel like when I'm having these conversations and I'm going over this, it's so easy in hindsight, right, after the fact, to pay attention to things and how they've been impacting you and how maybe some manipulation tactics might have been used. Maybe you recognize it in other people. It can be heavy. So we're here at 3 hours and 17 minutes, and I'm about to end the show, okay? I don't want this one to be a call-in show, not just because we didn't meet the goal, but because I feel like I don't want this to turn into like just men challenging what I'm saying. You know, because a lot of times they just want to challenge everything and be like, well, women have this messed up way of viewing themselves as big. No, we don't need that. Right? In all the videos that I watched today, they talk about men and women. They talk about non-relationship ways of being groomed and preyed on. And so I want to just let this one marinate. Yeah, they are hard topics though. And they do make you think quite a bit, especially if you're a person who has been healing, right? So maybe you used to be in a cycle of dealing with abusive relationships and you learned to love yourself. You were able to find somebody who treats you well, respects you, that you put the right boundaries in place. And you might hear things like this and it might weigh heavy on you. So I like to, for these conversations, I think I'm going to try and, especially when they're more serious topics like this, I'm going to try and like leave room to debrief in terms of like not really try to jump in and have a panel and a bunch of bandits coming in talking, acting crazy, or just like let it turn into a trauma bonding session. I don't want that to happen ever. Even if sometimes people think, well, that applies to whatever this content into personal vendetta or anything like that about myself. So that being said, I'm going to end the show here. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm going to play a nice little song for you guys before I go. And I'll see you guys on the next one.
Florabella on my screen. Her smile is shone so bright. She's a queen with every scene. In the morning or the night. Recipes and good vibes from every video a gem. Confidence it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora. She's got that power. Spreading her aura. Blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong, she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora. She's got that power. Spreading her aura. Blossoming like a flower. Recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora. She's got that power. Spreading her aura. Blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong, she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora. She's got that power. Spreading her aura. Blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong.
All right, guys. I hope you guys have a great evening. I hope that you enjoyed the show, that you were able to get something out of it. And I will see you guys on the next one.